Well, welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you. Good evening, Lunenburg. We thank a number of people. There's various good folks here in the audience, multiple sectors from Lunenburg and surrounding towns. Thank you for being here. To our speakers, thank you for making the journey. Look forward to hearing from you. We have 3 distinguished speakers tonight who we'll hear from. I would like to thank the up-and-coming Lunenburg Health and Wellness Initiative. It's a committee that is about to become a Lunenburg committee, an official town committee that we're advocating for, where we are tracking the Lunenburg Health and Wellness indicators around town. So this is one initiative where we will monitor the various indicators and through the research see what changes and what makes a difference. So thank you for those who did participate in the various online questionnaires. More will be forthcoming if you so choose to complete them. Thank you very much. For tonight, our 3 speakers. First, a main speaker, introduce her, then we'll take a quick break for our second speaker. For those who would like a bio break afterwards, for coffee and the food, we'll come back for our third speaker. So here we go. First thing, thank you. Rhonda, if you would like to join. So Brigadier General, retired, Rhonda Cornum, PhD, MD. Rhonda Cornum is a former United States Army General Officer and Director of Health Strategy for Technology Works in 49 North. She's a surgeon, a board certified in urology, having earned a doctorate in biochemistry and nutrition from Cornell University. As a former Desert Storm prisoner of war, and the former Assistant Surgeon General for Force Protection for the U.S. Army, Dr. Cornum offers a unique perspective into psychological and physical fitness at scale. She served as the first director of the U.S. Army's novel comprehensive Soldier Fitness Initiative. The strategy represented the model for universal implementation of physical and psychological health promotion within the Department of Defense, and having affected 1.1 million soldiers. That program remains the single largest implementation of well-being and positive psychological skills in scope and scale globally. Thank you.
All right. By the way, this I'm going to have to use as probably a laser pointer. I had 2 hips replaced over the winter, so this time next year I'll be galloping my horse across the fox hunting field. But right now I'm a little slow. I really appreciate being invited to participate in this because I think this is really important. And I remember when I was in the Army and I would be speaking about what we were doing, and I would have folks say something like, because we had implemented training in basic training, and they said, why don't you take this to the Department of Education? I said, well, because I'm in the Department of Defense and I'm really busy, and so why don't you take it? Myself. So I think that this is really an important thing for every community, and if I can help everybody see the potential, then I will have accomplished my mission tonight. Okay, here's an important thing. Mental health, just like physical health, is not just lack of mental disease. It is all the things that help us do well, or less well if we're not so mentally healthy, at everything else. Mental health is what will make you have confidence that if you diet, you will lose weight. Mental health is what will say, if I practice hard, I'll be a better tennis player. So we need to optimize it, not just try to treat it when it just falls off the bottom line. preventive medicine, and by the way, how many preventive medicine type people do I see here? Okay, I'm all for that. I love preventive medicine. And I do all the preventive medicine things that at my age I'm supposed to do, by the way. But it really is, preventive medicine is those things we do that to a whole population of people that will really affect a minority of them. So if 1 out of every 11 women is going to get breast cancer, and we squash everybody once a year, then we're really not doing anything positive for the other 10. Other than making them appreciate they only have to do it once a year. So whether it's mammography or colonoscopy, that's even worse than the boob washing thing, or whether it's coma testing, we have individual diseases, we're taking individual steps to prevent. It's an important thing to do, and like I said, I do them all. And there's a bunch of psychological preventive medicine things we do. So if you go, like I said, just have my hip done, you go for your pre-op, and you think they're going to ask about, your arthritis and other surgeries. No, they're going to ask you, do you feel safe going home? Are you depressed? Are you feeling suicidal? Now, orthopedic surgeons, are not touchy-feely people. They ask that because it's required to do. So there's all these things that we are required to do. Once again, most people are not afraid to go home. Most people are not depressed, and most people are not feeling suicidal. But they ask because you might find some who are, and then you can do something. So we have a bunch of psychological preventive medicine things we do. And they're useful, but the goal is not just to find how many depressed people. The goal is not to find how many and treat how many people we can with an anxiety disorder. The goal is to make people healthier. The goal is to make the whole society healthier. And in addition to preventive medicine, we have to do health promotion. Because health promotion are those things we do that will help everybody. No matter how good your diet is, you can always eat more broccoli. No matter how much exercise you get, you can always exercise more intelligently. No matter how low your blood pressure is, you can always do a little more mindfulness or some other contemplative practice and do better. So health promotion are things that will help you globally. They will help you if you're doing well. They'll help you if you're doing not so well. They'll help you if you're challenged with some bad problem, and they'll help you if you're just if life is going great and you just want to celebrate. So that's sort of physical health promotion. Look at all that broccoli. Well, there's psychological health promotion too. This is the Premier of the state of South Australia, and they made a conscious decision as a state, and the state of South Australia has about the same population as the United States Army. So we know how to do this. What else are we striving for if not the well-being of everybody? So not just to prevent one thing, but the well-being of the whole population. And it's really resilience training, which I think is really going to help you do anything you want to do. So, health promotion. So psychological health promotion. What is it? It's these things. It will help you certainly do well if things are going poorly, but it will also help you if you are resilient. If you know that you can bounce back from a problem, then you are more likely to take advantage of opportunities that carry a little risk. Because what the heck? If this business doesn't work, I'll start another one. As opposed to the person who stays in a job they don't like, but they're afraid. They're afraid to try something new because they don't think they would do well if this one first business didn't go well. So practically, this is what it is. Resilience is really the sum total of the assets you have in physical, emotional, and social and spiritual well-being. And I think it's critical. Just another, I just have been collecting things about resilience, actually. And here are the things, here are the skills. Notice these are not symptoms, because it doesn't really help. If you ask people about symptoms, and dear Lord in heaven, in the Army we ask people about symptoms about every 3 months. But even if you don't endorse any symptoms, you don't say, yes ma'am,
Can you adjust the light so that we can actually see?
Well, someone might be able to. I know I cannot.
Yes.
Yeah, turn the lights down so they can see my phone. I worked really hard, so thank you for saying it. I don't know how to do that,
Yeah.
but I'm certainly glad you didn't wait till the end. Are we getting better? Okay, no sleeping. Okay, just letting you know. So, realistic optimism, that's not Pollyanna. That is realistically looking at your situation and saying, here's what I can do to make this better. Problem solving. You know, if you're a kid who's never seen anybody solve a problem other than the dad gets drunk or the mother eats chocolate, then you're not going to have a long list of coping skills that will help you. Self-regulation. I've heard people say all the time, I felt like punching my fist through a wall. You might feel like doing it, but, you know, normal people don't do it. They emotionally self-regulate and say, well, you know, what would the benefit of that be? I have a hole in my wall and maybe a broken finger. So, and having quality relationships, as well as certainly the physical things, you know, eating, drinking, sleeping, exercising are things that will help you no matter what. Okay, so what we had this. This is the things that will make the whole person better. And if you can optimize all of these, that's great. If you can only optimize one or two at a time, then work on those, you know. And we were talking about earlier about transitions from being employed to being retired, transitions from school to graduating to a job, transitions being single to being married. They may be wonderful things. They may be things you've been looking forward to forever. But it still is a little stress, and you still need some of these resilient skills to make that transition most successful. And here's the real deal. And I'm a physician. I mean, I'm a urologist, and so I'm not in any way detracting from the importance of whether it's social work or medicine or surgery or psychology or anything. But you know, it is true that on average, our behavior, what we decide to do, what we decide to think, what we decide to eat, when we decide to go to bed, that probably has more to do with our overall health than anything else. And the amount of medical care is really small, it's like 10%. So, and yeah, socioeconomic matters. I mean, if you can't afford to buy broccoli or there's no broccoli where you live because it's a food desert and you know there's nothing except canned and frozen and high-fat, high-fructose things, that's a problem. But it's not the biggest problem. It's your decision about which of those things to buy that's the bigger problem. And absolutely, genetics has a lot to do with it. I used to watch guys join the Army, and they'd get off the bus at Fort Jackson. And I would watch these, you know, 17 to 22-year-olds get off the bus, and I would look at this guy and I'd say, that guy is never going to run a 6-minute mile. And I would look at, and I thought, oh my God, that guy's never going to run a 6-minute half mile either. You know, there's hope. But I can make them all faster than they are today. And so, yes, genetics matters, but quality of training is something we can be responsible for, and motivating people to learn is something we can be responsible for. And those two things together are a lot more important than your genetic gifts. Okay, well, we found out, first of all, because I was a biochemist in my early life, I was unwilling to do a program if we didn't have some measurable outcomes so that I could tell if it wasn't working, because I had been tortured into doing many things that didn't work. So we only did one of these, but a lot of other people did research and showed that whether it's in the Navy, that if you were started off in the bottom 25% of psychological health, didn't have a disease, didn't have a disorder, just weren't very robust, you were much more likely to drop out just in the first 7 weeks of basic training. The Air Force was the same way. They showed that the people, once again, in the bottom 25% were much more likely to attrit out on their first assignment. And in the Army, we showed the very same thing. You were more likely to, like 3 times more likely to drop out if you started off less psychologically sick. And these are people, this is all corrected for, you know, how fast you are and what your body fat percentage is and your education level. So psychological fitness really does matter. And it matters when you're beyond basic training as well. It matters. Yeah, there was a big study called the Millennium Cohort Study. They showed the same thing, that the people who started off not, like I said, didn't have a diagnosis of anything, just started off not so psychologically robust, had 7 times the rate of post-traumatic stress disorder. I say a little bit flippantly, but I really mean it. You know, war's not really good for fragile people. And then we measured everybody, the entire Army, we measured their psychological health. We measured strengths. We didn't measure symptoms, we measured strengths. So you could be really good or really not so good. And if you were in the bottom, you were more likely to have some indiscipline, a suicidal ideation, do some crime, have a psychological disorder diagnosed. And if you were in the top 25%, yep, as you might expect, you're more likely to make command, you're more likely to get promoted, you're more likely to do well. Now, I guess somebody else showed that in that combat too. If you start off with a lot of capital, a lot of resilience, a lot of psychological capital, then you didn't have very much anxiety or depression, regardless of how much combat you saw. And if you didn't have very much, you didn't have to see very much, and you still had a pretty high rate of depression and anxiety. So psychological fitness does matter. And a friend of mine actually did a study, and they looked at psychological fitness and the outcome of doing a femoral acetabular impingement surgery. Now, like I said, ortho guys are not well known for being touchy-feely people. But he calls me and he says, Ron, should I be giving resilience training to these people? Because I don't think I should be operating if they've only got a 20% chance of doing well. When if I have some really psychologically robust person, he's got an 80% chance of doing well. So it really matters. Because, you know, that 60% difference, how much surgery are we doing that we can really predict this is going to work? And we did the sort of same thing. We showed if you did your emotional, we tested people's psychological health before they ever deployed, and then just watched them, and it's a different measuring system. And we saw how many times, for example, they sought primary care. And it's almost twice as often do you seek primary care for some problem if you start off not psychologically very fit. And this is actually in military medicine this month. We measured everybody's psychological strength in, 10%, 10%, 10% from the bottom 10 to the top. And then looked 2 years later, what was the likelihood they had a psychological diagnosis? And as you can see, it was over twice as high if you started off not psychologically fit. And these are people who had no diagnosis in their medical record and were taking no medicines. So they just weren't very robust. So wouldn't it be nice if I know that, if I could make everybody a little more robust? Because it doesn't take much. If you take those 10% deciles and look at the average score, this is what it is. So theoretically, you can get from a 0 to a 5 on our psychological fitness survey, but in reality, almost nobody goes down here. So really and truly, even the bottom 10 percentile had a score of 2.7. And the best people, had a 4.7. So you wouldn't have to make a very big difference in a score, and you might make a big difference in their likelihood of having a problem in the future. And that's important because we have demonstrated that, in fact, you can change people's psychological fitness with training. Because truly, it wouldn't matter if you couldn't fix it. And this is just a study that shows, this is following all the prisoners of war that were released during Vietnam, and those who did not have a psychological problem of any sort in the ensuing, I guess now it's 50 years or so. Some of those things you can not do anything about. You can't help what age you're captured. That's just bad luck. You can't help how long they leave you in solitary. But you, the individual, can change how optimistically you think if you practice. Like most things, if you practice, and you practice well, you'll do better. I didn't have to say, back in the 90s, I was a doctor, and I was a biochemist. I really wasn't into psychological chemistry, but I was a doctor, and I was deployed to the Persian Gulf for the Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and the war went really well for my unit. I was with an attack helicopter unit, and we didn't lose anybody, and we did all the stuff. We blew stuff up, and we took pictures, and we captured people, and we cleared bunkers, and we brought back all kinds of contraband, and we did exactly what we were told to do, and all was good. We were camped up in Iraq, and my last surviving picture of my poor helicopter. And call comes on the radio to my pilot. I took out this aircraft. I was the doctor behind in the back. Said, "Do you have the doc on board?" And Phil says, "Yep, I got the doc." And they said, "Well, do you have all our stuff?" Because we had done a lot of first responding to wrecks. He said, "Yeah, we got our stuff." I mean, I had IV fluid and warmers and meds and intubation stuff. I mean, I had, if you could fit it in a helicopter, it was there. So, well, good, because there's been a guy shot down, and we are the only unit that's got helicopters anywhere near him. Would you guys go get him? We thought, wow, what a great mission. Of course we'll go. So we got a couple of Apaches and us, my Black Hawk, and we went walking out in the desert to get this guy. And, you know, we had a moderately good plan. The two Apaches would circle and provide cover, and my Black Hawk would land, and we'd take some infantry guys with us, and they would provide ground support, and I would go over there and I'd put a splint on this guy's broken leg. We knew he had it because he was talking on his little emergency radio. And I'd put him on the stretcher, and the infantry guys would come, we'd pick him up, we'd put him back in the Black Hawk, and we'd fly home. That was the plan. And it seemed like it would probably work. Well, you always hope those Air Force guys will eject someplace far away from the guns, but it doesn't always go that well. So, we got to about 1 kilometer from this young man, and the same guys that got his F-16 blew the tail boom off my helicopter. And you know, as we're not even as high as this room, so I can assure you that those people that tell you that your whole life will flash before your eyes if you think you're dying, they start off a lot higher than I was. So I had time for one thought, and my one thought was, well, at least I'm dying doing something honorable. Because how horrible would it be to go into infinity thinking, oh, I'm going to embarrass my family, I'm going to embarrass everybody, they won't get their, you know, life insurance, it'll all be horrible. So, so then we crashed, and that was it, in the end. And when I came to, which was some hours later because it was dark, you know, I remembered that last thought, oh, I think I'm dead. And I thought, well, maybe I'm not dead. And so if I'm not dead, I'm not just going to lay here and die in a post-crash fire that might come, so I'll move. And me moving convinced myself probably that I wasn't dead, but more importantly, convinced the Iraqi soldiers at this big ammunition supply point that I wasn't dead either. Because the next time I tried to stand up, there were 5 guys with guns pointed at my head. So I looked up and said, not dead. But I was a prisoner. Now, being a prisoner, by anybody's definition, you can be the most optimistic person you want to be. That is not a great thing. But it is better than being dead. So at that moment, I could choose to focus on the bad part, you know, I'm captured, this could go really poorly, or the good part. I'm not dead, and where there's life, there's hope kind of thing, so I chose to focus on that. They stood me up. They took out my gun and my flak jacket and all that. And then I kind of took stock of myself, which was not that great either, actually. This arm kind of went down to about there and down. And this one did the same thing. So I broke both of them. Well, one of them got shot, and the other one I just broke in the crash. And I couldn't walk because I had articulated this flag. So I'm kind of looking at this mess, and I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be really bad. My fingers, I didn't feel anything. I couldn't move them. And I said, oh, I know what the problem is. Somehow, when this big thing fell on me, my arms got severed up there, and they're gonna release my sleeves, and my arms are gonna fall out of my flight suit, and I'm gonna throw up. I just know it. And you know, I'm trying to think of some way not to do that because there's no cool points for throwing up on the enemy. And so I'm standing there, and they're yelling and trying to say what to do with me, I guess. And eventually, the fingers started working. I mean, they were still pointing the wrong way, but they at least started moving. And I could look at them moving, and I thought, well, it's been several hours, probably 3 or 4 hours by now. If there's still enough blood, enough nerves that they can move, they probably can get fixed. So again, you know, you could focus on, oh, this horrible break, or you could focus on, well, at least they're still attached, and I can probably get them fixed, which is where I chose to focus. So, you know, got interrogated a few places, and ultimately got taken to Basra in a jail there, and then ultimately got taken to a prison in Baghdad. And that was about day 4 or 5-ish, and then probably got as good a care as you could get by the time I got to Baghdad. Of course, in a place where we had taken off all the electricity grid, that's not that great. And so very professional. The guy comes in with his beautiful Iraqi uniform, and the nurses come in, and the resident comes in, and the medical student come in, and they got their white coats. And they're doing all the rounds by kerosene lantern because there's no electricity in this hospital. So there was they put me to sleep, which you really don't want to go to sleep where there's no backup electricity either. But they did make the arm shaped again and put them in casts, which made it much less uncomfortable. And ultimately, thankfully, if you're going to get shot down, it's best to get shot down at the end of the war. So ultimately, the war ended, and they traded the 27 Americans they had captured for the 80,000 Iraqis we had captured, and we got back. That's POW 101. And those of you who are old may remember this picture coming down from they put us in our yellow POW costumes while we were in Baghdad. That is General Schwarzkopf. I am explaining that I normally salute 4-star generals, but, sir, I've got 2 broken arms and I can't. He said that was okay. Good. So then we went from Riyadh, we went out to Bahrain on the hospital ship, the Mercy, and spent a few days on the hospital ship, and then ultimately flew back to Washington. Oh, that's the guy I went to pick up, by the way. And they didn't shoot him, and, he did get his broken leg fixed, and he went back and actually flew again. Turns out, I didn't know this guy from Adam, he was just some poor soul out there. He was the classmate of my husband's Air Force Academy. So we're glad he came back too. And then we came back to the U.S., and we landed in Washington, and I have strategically placed myself between 2 tall people because I still can't catch myself with these 2 stupid broken arms. So at least if I fall down the stairs, someone will catch me. I think, And they did do a very nice thing. You'll notice I'm in a uniform because there's no cool points for being in your PJs when you come back to the States either. So they took one of my flight suits to a tailor and had zippers put in from the wrist to the armpit down to the waist so I could get them on over the cast. I thought that was really nice, actually. And we're sitting and listening to the mandatory welcome back thing from the Secretary of Defense. And that is my darling daughter, who I had not seen for the last 7 or 8 months. And that was really the only time I cried, and I think it was just relief. Because, in my most optimistic moments, I felt confident I'd get home, but I hadn't really been so optimistic I thought I'd get home as soon as I did. So I was pretty happy to see her. And then there was great rejoicing. We got home, and our little town in Fort Rucker let out the school and let everybody, welcome us home, and that was pretty nice. But, not everybody got to rejoice. There were 5 people killed in Iraq, so what do you make with that in your little brain? Well, here's what you do. Bad things will happen. It's not unique to the war. Bad things happen to everybody. You get cancer, your spousal unit dumps you, your mother dies, your dog gets run over, you lose your job. Bad things will happen. And so since they will happen, it's up to you to decide what to do with them. And so what did I do with this? Well, first of all, I just thought I would just go back to work. I thought I'd get everything fixed and I'd go back to work. Magically, people asked me what I thought. Now, I didn't think anything different, but all of a sudden, I was the expert on women in combat and stuff, and so when they asked me, I testified to Congress, and yeah, they removed combat exclusion the next year so women could fly fighters. I thought, so why do you think it's better to send women to the war without being able to shoot back? That made no sense to me. You do with these things what you can. And it's kind of like if you're working for Procter & Gamble and they decide to send you to some horrible place you never wanted to live, but, it's a promotion, you gotta go. My recommendation is celebrate what there is there. Don't just sit around and ruminate about what there isn't. You'll be a lot happier. I've been to some places where some people did a lot of ruminating in the Army. I chose to look more positively at it. Well, some places are harder than others, so. And so I got back, and I did. I got everything fixed, and I went back to work, and I had a lot of fun, actually. I commanded the Combat Support Hospital in Bosnia and Fort Bragg, and I commanded the big Huntsville Hospital in Germany, and we took care of 26,000 people as the 2 years I was there, and then I ultimately did get out, and I run a farm in Kentucky, and I had a wonderful time. And people did ask that, how did you make it? And I used to think it was kind of a facetious question. I wanted to say, well, what did you think I was going to do? Just sit on the floor and stop breathing? Of course I made it. But then I had the follow-on comment, because somebody would say, I don't think I'd have made it. And I thought that was about the saddest thing I'd ever heard. I would never want to go through my life thinking, man, if I come upon a problem, I won't be able to solve it. I would never want to go through life like that. That would make me fearful, and fear is not a useful, emotion. And so I thought, so I have an opportunity now that I could potentially help people not feel that way. There are ways to think. Now, I learned it when I was a kid. I learned it from my parents and grandparents, and I don't know, I mean, I just had it. But not everybody does get that. So when I had to really think about, so how did I? Why was I successful? And some people in other circumstances are not. Well, pretty easy, in my view, it's this. Physically fit, if you're in good cardiovascular shape, then when you bleed out a lot, because you get shot and you bleed out a lot, your heart and your brain will work better and survive longer than if they're not in good shape. Emotionally fit, like I said, you find something positive to say about any bad thing. The family fitness, going to war is bad enough, but don't go to war mad at somebody, because you may never get the chance to make up for that, and then you'll feel guilty, and guilt is even worse than fear. And the spiritual fitness thing, finding purpose and meaning in what you do. So that's important. And luckily, there's many medical and military and law enforcement probably find it pretty easy to find purpose and meaning in what you do. So those are how that's what you do to be fit. And then I would get the question about, so how are you changed? I finally figured it out. What they really were asking was, how are you damaged? And I started off saying, I'm not changed at all. And then I got asked over and over again, so I said, well, perhaps I should reflect a little bit. Maybe I am. Okay, I am. I'm a better doctor. I'm a better parent. I'm a better leader. I'm better at everything except doing push-ups. Admittedly, getting shot did not help my push-ups. I did max the PT test again afterwards, but it was harder. And, you appreciate what you almost lose, perhaps more than if you don't come close to losing it. So in fact, I would have to say, in almost every way, I was better. That's not what people expected, but it's a decision about focusing on those things as opposed to focusing on, oh, my shoulder hurts, and oh, my knee hurts, and oh, something else hurts. Well then, so I was in the Army, I went back to work, I did surgery training and all that stuff, and ultimately, I was fortunate enough to get promoted to general officer. I went to the Pentagon. And fortunately for me, not so much fortunately for the real Surgeon General, he had some medical problems and he was gone a lot. So I got to go as the Assistant Surgeon General to a lot of things that I would otherwise not have done. And so there I was, and everything we measured was getting worse. If you might remember, the war had been going on now for, 5, 8 years, now it's 15, and things were not getting better in any measurable way. Why anybody would expect that? We had an army that had been recruited on thinking we were going to prevent World War III and the folding gap. So this was not what they had. They signed up to get educational benefits. But this is what we had. And so I remember that I was sitting there with the Chief of Staff in the Army, General George Casey, and we're sitting there listening to one more suicide problem. And they're talking about, how bad it is, and here's what we're doing, but you can see that here's what we're doing, but it's obviously not changing anything. So he says, Rhonda, we have got to do something besides just find and treat your disease. And I said, yes, sir, we do. We need to look at psychological fitness just like the Army looks at physical fitness. And he says, what? So I actually did the real life draw on the back of an envelope thing. So I kind of drew this picture, but now you can read it. The Army brings people in with certain standards, and then we have physical training. And it's either 3 or 5 times a week, and it makes you stronger, faster, more flexible, and we reward people for doing better. Now, the people that are either sick or injure themselves, we take care of them, but we have training for that vast majority of people in the middle. We don't just say, well, if you didn't flunk, you must be perfect. I mean, that's ridiculous. We want people to be better all the time. We want them to aspire to be better. So the problem with psychological fitness is we didn't do anything for those people in the middle. So the people that were doing really badly down here, we have all sorts of things. We either arrest them because they were doing drugs, or we sent them to, mental health clinics, or they were kicked out, or they were inpatients sometimes. They went to see, family counseling. They did all this stuff. We put a lot of resources on the people who were clearly failing. But we did nothing for all these people in here. These people who are doing okay, but everybody could do better. Well, the further as you are getting closer and closer to this line of falling off into the abyss, you're more likely to do less well. So we want to move people this way. We want people to be self-confident, have some self-regulation, good communicators. We want to move people to the right, just like we do with physical fitness. And so my job became to find a way to do that, right? So we did. We developed, first of all, a strengths-based survey so that even if you didn't have any symptoms, you could still endorse a lot of or lesser strengths. So we put together what we call a global assessment tool, and it did. It measured strengths of people, so we had a relatively bell-shaped curve about that. And then we found out that there are things you can teach. We found some, and back this was in 2008, there weren't very many people doing this kind of training, but we found the University of Pennsylvania that was doing it. And so we contracted with them to change their curriculum from what they used in middle school and high school and college to what we use for a military population. We kind of moved from Bambi to Braveheart, but the same skill. So we instituted resilience training in the Army, and at all levels, from basic training to at least a lecture at the War College. Oops, I didn't do it. Hal moved that way. Well, maybe I did it, but I didn't mean to. I suppose I should take. I'm responsible. I'm sure I did it, but I didn't see anybody else doing it. But anyway,
that's the spinning wheel of death right there. So.
Spinning wheel of death.
Well,
just fire me. I don't know what that means.
I will get it fixed.
Okay, you'll get that fixed. So, it's still spinning. If I could look at them even smile, I know what I was supposed to say next. But so we found out that, just like they had shown in high schools and colleges, that you can, and middle schools, that if you institute resilience training, you can decrease symptoms, certainly, of depression, anxiety. You can decrease behavior problems in schools. You can increase performance in schools. We, in the Army, I will be happy to show you this data if we can resurrect the slideshow. But so there's what they showed. So basically, and we're not going to deploy an army of psychologists, by the way. So what happened when these people, Gillum and his other researchers taught the teachers in schools, and then they measured the outcome of the students. So they taught the teachers, and then the kids either had teachers that had the training or didn't, and they showed that you're killing me. Here we are. No, I didn't do it.
I'll do your slides.
Okay. I'm not touching anymore. Okay. So they've showed that up till 31 months, that the people that had resilience training did better. And they might have, if they kept following it, they might have, but they ran out of funding, after a while. Next. That would be next. Yeah. In the Army, we show that incident resilience training does change these things. And it changes it a lot more if you are younger. That makes sense. Often, by the time people are older, they figured it out by themselves. But you know, it's the 18 to 24-year-olds that have all the problems. They're the ones that are having the problems with mental health problems and substance abuse and various other disciplines. So we showed that we could change them by instituting resilience training. Not, once again, we didn't send out an Army psychologist. We trained their drill sergeants and their first sergeants to teach them how to do this. Next. And we showed that if you gave them the training, that the people that had it did in fact have less substance abuse and less diagnosis of mental health of all sorts. Now, the differences are not huge. It's just like any other public health intervention you would do. I mean, aspirin to prevent heart attacks did not change it, from 100% to nothing. But as I did the math, and I didn't know how many people were in your little towns here, but I know how many people there are in Massachusetts. So if in every year you had 68,000 fewer people with a substance abuse or a mental health diagnosis, that would be a significant number. It would certainly be a significant number to that guy or gal's family that didn't have to deal with that. So even a small difference in a large population makes a big difference. Next. Now, people ask me, so what do I do? I'm going to say, as a parent, I would get these three things. Now this one, the little incident could, I remember that from growing up, and I looked it up, and it was written in 1930, so no, I'm not that old, but I remember it, so it was still hanging out in my house. And then the Aren't I Lucky Dad, that's a psychologist who we worked with in Europe, and then Angela Duckworth in Grit. Basically, people who persevere, people who have the ability to exercise delayed gratification will do better than people who don't, and you can practice those things. So, we managed to accomplish all this in the Army. I was very pleased, actually. I wasn't sure it was going to be successful, but it was. And I would say these are the things that would be successful whether you're in the Army, the state of South Australia, the Air Force, or Leominster, Lunenburg. What's the other place in here? Yeah, that you have to have buy-in at all levels. You can't have people sabotaging the effort. And you have to all realize that you're working towards the same goal. That whether you're a teacher, a bus driver, a psychologist, a surgeon, a law enforcement officer, the local dog catcher, that the idea is not how many dogs you can catch. The idea is not how many operations you can perform. The idea is, ultimately, because I'm doing whatever it is I'm doing, my community will be better. You just have to make sure that everybody is working towards that same goal. And everybody's got their own step to it, but everybody's got to have that vision. And a strategic communication plan, so that you have an answer for when some naysayer says it will never work. Well, I look at that as a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't do it, it's like people who, we did this training in South Australia in a company that was closing, and one woman did say, I'm never going to get another job, because she was about to lose her job. And I'm thinking, well, you're right, because you're never going to apply, honey. So you got to get people out of that mindset. That there is something you can do. You could become more attractive to a future employer. There are things you can do, and there's always something you can do. And I think that's it. I'm done. At the end, or there's questions now?
No, questions to more at the end, but if you guys have questions for Rhonda, feel free.
We woke everybody up in like that.
We could take a few questions for Rhonda, also if you'd like to jot them down and leave them for us, as well as comment on various Facebook and Eventbrite posts. We'll also answer those questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Was it me? That was you? Okay. Can you hear me? Everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
I'll repeat it if they can't.
Okay, thanks. I had a question question about the research that you were doing, which is so interesting. And I was wondering if, sort of near the beginning of the presentation, you outlined some of your slides touched on some of like the social determinants of health. And I was wondering.
I didn't write that. That was written by some guy.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. I was wondering if any of the research that you know of has indicated whether the ability to develop one's resilience is impacted by social determinants of health at all, or people that experience
Right.
more or less
That's
hardship.
based on the demographics of the population.
Yeah, sure.
So certainly when we do this study, we correct for education level, age, rank, number of deployments. We correct for those sorts of things. We don't necessarily correct for adverse childhood experiences because we
Yeah.
but other research has been done that does that.
Yeah. And is it,
You can always get that.
yeah, cool.
It may be harder for some people.
Mm-hmm.
It, just like I said, some of those people, when they get off that bus, they're going to have a hard time making a 2-mile run. Almost everybody can do it.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
So what were some of the steps that you acted, that you put together to...
Well, the first thing we did was we had our assessment that a soldier would do. It only took about 15 minutes on the computer. He or she would immediately get feedback. So they'd get a score, and they'd get a little algorithmically determined paragraph about what that meant. And then, what I think was very important was we developed a software application that those scores would be sent in, strip away the name and social, but leave everything else, assign them a surrogate number, and then link that with every other thing the Army measures, whether it's when and what dates you deploy, what medical what operations you had, what allergies you had, where you've been assigned, everything else we measure, so that we could look at real outcomes, not just subjective outcomes.
And what about the training that you did?
Well, what we did was we started off with basically combat brigades and battalions because we thought they were at highest risk. So we brought in sergeants that were assigned to those units, and one per company, say. Now, you can't train everybody at once, so we could either do this one of two ways. We could randomly assign them across the Army, then you've got one guy in, 60,000 guys at Fort Bragg, and one guy, 60,000 guys at El Paso. That's unlikely to be noticeable. So we chose to do them in sort of a weightless control, basically. So we put them all in one spot, and then had some units that didn't get anybody. And we were planning to do that for the first 2 or 3 years, but the hue and cry from the commanders who didn't get any, and they were going to put a contract on my mind.
Yeah.
I didn't let it happen. Because their friends who had hit these guys said these guys are really helping, and helping everybody, So we had to sort of end data collection early because everybody was getting it.
So is this something that's done regularly now?
It's something that's done. We started off doing the basic training, and yeah. Now, there have been some problems in that you have to find things to follow on.
Right.
So now that everybody's got the basics, and that kind of was developing while I was leaving.
Right.
I mean, at some point you got to get out and learn. No matter how much you like it, at some point you got to learn. So I can't speak to exactly what they're doing right now, but I do know they're still training.
Okay.
At least all the initials.
And some of the steps to add to the actual training of that population with the grid.
Well, the steps, there's a couple ways to do it. One is sort of a small group lecture kind of thing.
Okay.
And you give, and Chris and Jill are going to talk about that.
Okay.
And there might even do some. You might even see training in action. So I'll just leave that for now.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
What about the other branches of drug services like the Navy?
Well, we do it for the Air Force. They did it, had something to do with the fact that my husband was a 1-star in the Air Force, and he saw what we were doing. He said, my guys deserve that too. So it got pretty well picked up in the Air Force. The Navy, not so much. They're just the Navy. That's right. I'm sure that guy with the camera back there did not hear that. Yes, ma'am. out of every 4 schools right now has got this curriculum embedded.
Which one?
One out of every 4 schools. And they're making it, I mean, more and more of them.
Where do we get the curriculum?
Well, no, that's a question that I will let someone else answer.
All right.
Well, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brigadier General Fornham, obviously for the hope of the overall vision of resilience, as well as your own personal story. I'd like to move from there to Jill, introducing Jill, who she'll present for 10 minutes on the research. There are a few questions that I've heard. What is the research? What are the underpinnings of the curriculum? So we'll hear from Jill about the research, and then thereafter take a break and hear from Chris, the 3 strategies. So for Jill, thank you for coming. Dr. Jill Antonishak, PhD. She's the Director of Behavioral Health at Technology Works at 49 North. She oversees these companies' research and training teams at the Army, the Air Force, and Navy Special Warfare, as well as technical assistance to the companies in South Australia. She is a community and developmental psychologist with extensive experience in development, implementation, and evaluation of strengths-based preventative programs. Jill served an American Association for the Advancement of Science Congressional Fellow for Health, Education, Labor, and the Pensions Committee. Following her fellowship, she accepted a full-time position on the staff of that committee. Her focus now is centered on family support, military mental health, and suicide prevention. She received her PhD in Community and Developmental Psychology from the University of Virginia and her BA from Goucher College. She completed a postdoctoral fellowship in psychology at the University of Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to do a quick sound check. Can folks hear me? Okay, good. Thank you. I'm going to address a few of the questions that were asked, a little bit about the curriculum, a little bit about where these resilience and well-being programs come from a little bit. When Rhonda was doing all the really hard work in the Army getting the program started, I was a junior level staffer covering mental military health issues on the Senate Health Committee. And basically getting all these calls from our constituents that were under a lot of stress, families that were facing extended deployments, and recognizing that science knows a lot more about what we can do to help families and give them some of those early treatment or early prevention skills that might head off some of those challenges. And I'm incredibly grateful because since I was a very junior staffer who really had no idea about the military, later hearing more about the Army's program, and essentially Rhonda and General Casey are implementing those very things that we know are effective. Since then, the Army sort of made this the cool thing to do. So these programs have been spreading a lot more often. Rhonda mentioned we have a partnership with South Australia. They're doing a very large-scale public health implementation of these types of programs under this umbrella of resilience and well-being. So I want to talk a little bit about where some of these things come from. They were not just magically appeared out of nowhere. They're grounded in a pretty rich psychological history of the field with some more cutting-edge science being brought in, particularly from the field of positive psychology. How many of you know what positive psychology is? Is that term familiar? Okay, so a few people have had some exposure to it. I think a lot of these programs are frequently embedded in a positive psychology lens, but the truth is they draw from a lot of really important traditions, and I'm just going to go through those really quickly, sort of starting with developmental psychology. For a long time, we studied how kids from disadvantaged backgrounds sort of fought through that and dealt with stressors. And it took sort of some time in the 80s and 90s for the field to start actually looking at, all right, why is it that there's a lot of kids that actually thrive in the face of that adversity? And instead of focusing as much on what do we do to help those kids that are not thriving, what are the characteristics and qualities of kids that are resilient? We used to think it was just something either you were resilient or you were not resilient. And that was your course. And we know a lot more from the science now that in fact it's something you can learn, it's a skill set that you can develop, and Rhonda was responsible for making sure a lot of soldiers got that skill set. Science also started taking a more careful look at what does successful aging look like. There's a lot of longitudinal studies that look at what makes a fulfilling life. And again, this is not something that we had previously spent much time studying because we were so focused on, all right, let's treat the symptoms of what naturally comes with old age without paying much attention for what makes a fulfilling and meaningful life. Similarly, from the field of sort of marriage and family, if you're familiar with any of John Gottman's research, he's a researcher that could predict with 95% accuracy your likelihood of getting divorced based on seeing a 2-minute clip of you interacting with your spouse. Genius, right? I mean, that's great. That's what we focused on for so long without really noticing the flip side as much, which is what is it about healthy relationships that we could promote? What is it that we could do to strengthen in other relationships? We've also learned a lot from the field of educational psychology. So those of you that are teachers or working as educators might be familiar with social-emotional learning. Very similar traditions that are bringing this more of a focus on helping you learn and adapt to stress, develop more of a growth mindset, and what helps our students succeed. Finally, from clinical psychology, this is a little bit more of a focus on positive coping. So instead of trying to figure out how do we treat folks that have depression and anxiety, it's about looking at how can we use what we know works there to actually promote in a non-clinical setting. So things like cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance commitment therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, those are all tools that we know can work in a therapeutic environment. Are there aspects of those that we can integrate into training to help promote general well-being? Finally, the area of positive psychology, which is relatively new to the field. It's probably I want to say it's like the Beyonce of psychology right now, like really big, lots of researchers going into it, sort of trying to emulate this. What's so smart about positive psychology is that it takes all of that as an umbrella and says, let's apply that and promote more of these good characteristics. And so the field of positive psychology, once that umbrella was there, primarily driven by Marty Seligman at UPenn, you heard a little bit about the work that they did developing the Army's program. The offshoot from that is an amazing body of research that looks at things like grit more carefully. It looks at things like your strengths and virtues. How does living a life that corresponds with the values that you have promote well-being? Things like, there's a growing area in the research of self-compassion. Gratitude, Chris is going to teach a skill on gratitude. It's one of these very easy, straightforward skills, but the effects of having a regular gratitude practice, we know from the intervention research, it's very strong. It's such a simple skill, but has big dividends in the way that we view our positive outlook. Rhonda already, you heard her talk about her gratitude practice kind of already built into her life. Well, if this bad thing happened, I'm going to be at least grateful that this worst thing didn't happen. She already had that built in, and many people do. There's always those folks that sort of have that, but surprisingly, some of us are not practicing this on a regular enough basis. And so it is that regular practice and reminders that are so important. And then the last one is contemplative practices. If positive psychology is Beyonce, I'd say sort of mindfulness is like the JD version. So you're going to hear a lot probably in the next few years about mindfulness. Lots of companies talking about the importance of mindfulness. Google trains all their employees in mindfulness. I just talked with an Air Force general who makes his staff take 10 minutes of mindfulness practice in the conference room. So this is something that is really catching on. The truth is contemplative practice has been around for a long time. So if anyone's familiar with transcendental meditation, that's sort of the origins of this. The research here is what's really compelling, and I think that's why companies like Google are really jumping on this, because they're seeing some dividends in having a regular practice. And the last one I want to highlight is community psychology, because I think that is where a lot of these interventions fall a little short, is not acknowledging that individuals are nested within a larger culture. And so, Rhonda talked about targeting those individual soldiers. That is absolutely important. But if there wasn't leadership buy-in, if there wasn't lots of people getting the training, it's a lot harder to adapt those skills and practices without embedding it in a setting that really will promote those things. We know that you are more resilient when you're working around other resilient people. And so it's just important to look at the larger scale and the systems level change that you might be working to make. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what these resilience and well-being interventions are not, because I think they frequently get lumped into this sort of happiness industry that's popped up a bit. And so these are not interventions that are designed to teach us that the world is about rainbows and unicorns. It is not about pretending that bad things do not exist, and I think that's a really critical piece of this. Really what these are, happiness is this temporary emotion that we feel. And there's lots of people that's what they want their end goal to be. But that's not what a sense of well-being and resilience is really about. When this field first started coming up, Marty Seligman wrote a book called Authentic Happiness. And the media and lots of other people jumped on it, like happiness is the key to everything. And I think Marty wisely took a couple steps back and said, okay, that maybe you ran off a little too quickly with that concept. Instead, it's about this larger sense, and he called it PERMA. But essentially, this is a larger global sense of well-being. It's about positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and a sense of accomplishment. So it's larger than just, do I have this temporary sense of happiness? It's more about, do I feel engaged in the work that I'm doing? Do I have a larger sense of purpose and meaning? Do I have strong social connections? That is a larger construct that is related to these stronger outcomes, more so than just happiness. So I want to talk a little bit about how these kinds of interventions can help. Do I have any data nerds in the crowd? Thank you. So it's not just me. Thank you. All right, if you are a data nerd, this is a meta-analysis of a bunch of studies that looked at whether or not resilience interventions were effective. This is the zero line right about here. So anything that is higher than this is a study that has shown that these interventions had positive effects on well-being, sense of engagement, purpose, all of those things that we've been talking about. So if you can see, not every one has been successful, but the vast majority of these interventions have potential to make shifts in the well-being of communities and the organizations that they were embedded in. And Rhonda talked a little bit about the ones in the Army. I'm going to talk for a second. We've been working with the Air Force now since about 2013. So we helped the Air Force develop a curriculum for their airmen and civilians, and they're doing a little bit of work with family members as well. And they did an experiment when they were first rolling out the program. There's a one-week course called the First Term Airman's Course. And this is right after basic training and before you go into your career field. So it's 1 week like Airman 101 a little bit. And during that course, they rolled out their 8 hours of resilience training. And so some airmen got it and others did not. And they tracked those folks over time to see what kind of outcomes happened. So for the folks that got 8 hours of resilience training, those folks reported they coped with stress better than the airmen who did not receive the training. They reported stronger social connections and a greater sense of psychological well-being. And those things carried over even 3 months later. And so that was as long as they followed those airmen. So we're continuing to work with the airmen and embed those skills into various critical transition points. So I think someone asked what other groups were doing. And the Navy as a whole is not doing necessarily the same thing, but I will say we worked with the Navy SEALs, and they do some family resilience retreats, and we've been delivering some of these same skills that Chris is going to deliver tonight. So it's, again, there's pockets of goodness. Although, again, not on camera, but the Air Force and the Army, really the Army and the Air Force are leading the way on this area. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about what makes for a good intervention, because as you're starting to think about your organizations and your communities, how do you sort of prime the pump so that you've got conditions that will have success? And I want to talk a little bit about the importance of buy-in from participants. We've been working with South Australia, and one of the reasons they brought us down is because there was an area that was heavily dependent on a GM factory. So it's surrounded by other factories that were providing component parts, and the GM factory was going to close. And so, of course, there would be a significant job loss. They were not quite Detroit level scale, but quite close. And so the South Australian government wanted to be proactive there. And so we implemented some resilience training at 2 different component part factories. And at one location, that staff jumped on the opportunity. They loved the work. They had great trainers. Leadership bought in. And that's really where we saw some of the biggest successes. It was still effective at the other location, but we didn't see quite as strong findings there because they didn't have the same level of buy-in. Leadership wasn't as on board. They didn't quite have the same support. So again, no harm done, but where there is buy-in from members of your community or folks in your organization, you're going to get much stronger findings. Quality and fidelity is really important. You have to use a program that is grounded in some science. There's a lot of folks pushing curriculums out there that may or may not have some research backing and some evidence behind it. And so really being critical about the types of programs that you're implementing. And then once you do, implementing them with fidelity and implementing them well. Monitoring and evaluation is incredibly important. You heard Rhonda mention that the Army, I think that's one of the strengths of that initiative, is the measurement and the evaluation that they did along the way, making sure that the program was the right fit for that community. Very critical. And folks say, well, you've got an evidence-based program, why can't you still evaluate? And it's just something you have to make sure it's the right fit for you and the organization, and if you're not monitoring, you don't know. I think you have to make sure that you're using a program that is well evaluated to start with. I see, particularly when I was working on the Hill, lots of folks would come to me and say, you should implement this program because look at these increases over time. Such dramatic growth, this is a critical program. Well, what if I told you that this chart represented the number of words that my toddler was learning, ages in months? Yeah, there's lots of natural growth and change that happens over time. And so really being a critical consumer of the science that folks might be bringing to you when you're thinking about implementing anything. And then finally, this isn't about just providing one tool. So again, there's lots of these mindfulness curriculums out there, like Go Implement Mindfulness. There is a person-activity fit for some of this. And so one mindfulness practice might be the right fit for someone else, but that can't be the only tool that you give to members of your community or within your organization. You need a diverse toolbox of good, positive coping skills. Because, yes, one skill is good, but more skills we know are better because it gives you more ammunition, basically, to fight the different stressors that you have. And finally, if you want to do it at scale, you have to start somewhere. I know that in the Army and I know that in South Australia, they were definitely feeling like they were building the plane while flying it. That is certainly the case in most of these large-scale initiatives. But find one location, one organization, one place to start, and that's the best place to go. If there's a receptiveness and openness to the idea, get something in place, and then spread your best practices from there. So we gave a handout, if you didn't get one, we can grab one for you at the break, that talks a little bit about some steps to sort of think about if you're interested from your organizational perspective or from the community perspective about some steps to start looking at to implement these larger scale resilience and well-being. And we're happy to answer any questions, and thankfully got Chris, the local resident here, that can help too. But if you're going to start somewhere, start small. It might feel like you're flying the plane while building it. I don't know if there's any other way to do it. I think you just have to dive right in. All right? So I think we're going to take a brief break, and then when we come back, Chris is actually going to teach you some of the skills that we use in the Air Force, they're based a little bit on some of the work that happens in the Army as well, and so you'll get a chance to actually sit through the training. 10-minute break?
Take a 10-minute break. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions for Jill? You can catch her at break.
I was going to say, you can't say go on break and then say
No.
10 minutes, then come on back. Sure, Dan, if you don't mind taking over.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. See if anyone's still outside.
Yeah. Taking advantage.
Oh, my gosh.
Card from Cynthia said to him,
Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce Christopher Poe. Chris is currently a first sergeant in the U.S. Army Reserve and is the lead trainer for Technology Works in 49 North in a partnership with South Australian Health and Medical Research Institute located in South Australia. He is a decorated combat infantryman with over 27 years of service in the U.S. Army. His career has included combat, humanitarian, and peacekeeping operations in Cuba, Kuwait, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Iraq, Afghanistan, and East Africa. For almost a decade, Chris has been successful in delivering research-focused well-being and resilience skills in and out of uniform. As a resilience skills trainer for Technology Works in 49 North, and as a former drill sergeant, Chris brings a truly unique experience to his audiences. As my favorite line, his training comes from the heart, and he thrives on teaching and helping others explore new ways to persevere through challenges and flourish in their own lives. His strength is his authenticity and ability to relate his experiences as a husband and father of 4. In 2009, while serving as a senior drill sergeant, Chris was selected to attend the newly developed Master Resilience training course offered by the U.S. Army. His delivery of the skills to his unit drove observable improvements in unit performance, teamwork, and productive coping strategies that in turn sparked new initiatives to expand the training. In 2012, he joined 49 North and began delivering training as part of the first Air Force-wide Resilience Initiative. Chris is a recipient of the Combat Inventory's Badge for service under fire in Iraq, November 2014. Thank you. Look forward to hearing from you.
So first of all, before I begin, I want to tell you all how really excited I am. I'm a Lunenburg resident, so I'm amongst friends, I'm amongst neighbors, I'm amongst colleagues, and this is the first time in the last 10 years that Wanda and Jill, who have me running around the world training, that I get to do it right here at home. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm really hoping and I'm passionate about this. I mean, from my experience, right off the bat, I'm not a mental health worker, I'm not a social worker. How many of us do we have in the audience, people who work in the mental health field? I'm not you. I mean, some of the things you're going to see here are probably very familiar to you, and I've seen it in training and had the experience to teach it for the last 10 years. So, in saying that, I'm sort of a, yes ma'am.
Can you use a microphone so we can hear?
Oh, am I not speaking loud enough? Yeah,
Not loud enough.
I'd be happy to take a microphone. If somebody can help me out with that. How about I jump down here and...
Chris?
Yeah, use a microphone.
That's fun for a drill sergeant, not to speak loud enough. So, in doing this for the last 10 years, I've learned a lot along the way in the work we've done in South Australia, and I am just so impressed by the amount of work that's going into resilience-focused training that goes out into the big wide world. And in South Australia, different vectors of society, from the councils on aging, the commercial sector and businesses, education departments, law enforcement, the Department of Corrections, and I've got to teach with all of these different folks and watch how resilience has an effect across the community. And I want to do it right here at home in Lunenburg. And so I'm very lucky to have Wanda and Jill come up, and for the superintendent of schools to let us be here. So thank you all for being here with me. So we're going to go over 3 specific skills, similar to the way we teach them in the Army. We've adjusted some examples and that sort of thing. But we're going to go 3 skills that are really focused on building our well-being and building resilience. And I thought a good place to start would be to use the clicker properly. There it is. So a good place to start would be to sort of give you this. Darren. That's very dramatic. Thank you, Darren. Don't need to have it all off, Darren. That's the general consensus. Darren? How's that? Perfect. Well done. I thought it would be good to give you what my experience is with life before resilience training that Rhonda brought to, I was her target market in 2009. So before I was exposed to any positive psychology or resilience skills, my life was just as normal as anybody else. Do I have any people in the audience, any veterans in the audience, or other service members, or people that are familiar with the Thank you very much for your service, and thank you, Rhonda. A military community, an Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, we are a city or a town unto ourselves. We have a hospital, we have law enforcement, we have shopping, we have a bowling alley and a movie theater, we have an elementary school with educators. So when I look at resilience training and what we did inside the military and my experience there, it's no different than what we can do inside of Lunenburg or Fitchburg or Leominster or any town across America in delivering resilience to the community. So for me, that started in Newton. I was raised in Newton, and when I was younger, as you can see from the bottom picture, it was the 1980s. We didn't have our cell phones. We didn't have a lot of those electronics. We built resilience by getting out and doing. Now, that's changed just a little bit, but I would tell you that from my experience, I think it's not so different. What I mean is that the opportunities still exist to go out and engage in life. The reason why I want to show you those is because I know that resilience is built from the time you were little until where we are today. We all have our own levels of resilience. And as Rhonda was discussing the different sort of domains or categories, your mental resilience, your physical, your social, your spiritual resilience, and your family resilience, based on our experiences in life from the time we're small, where we've had our mentors, our teachers, our parents, the community, that's what fills those different domains in our lives. So depending upon our experiences, we all have our own level of resilience. How many of you think you're already resilient? How many of you in this room think you're already resilient right now? Absolutely, right? Everybody here has been through different adversities and challenges in their life. Some very big, what we call in the military big A adversities, and some very small, just the everyday resilience that we have to go through when we're dealing with the traffic, when we're dealing with the long lines at Walmart or Hannaford's, right? 15 items or less, but no doubt somebody in front of you is going to have 20 items. How's your resilience in that moment, right? So we get that through life. So as a young man, growing up in Newton, and by the way, my high school history teacher is sitting right here, and I really appreciate you being here, Dan. I had whatever level of resilience I had. So I joined the Army in 1990, and the Army pretty much looked at me and said, okay, we're going to take what it is you're bringing to the table, and we're going to build that resilience just a little bit more. But they focused in one particular area. If I tell you mental, physical, social, and spiritual, what do you think was the primary area that the Army wanted to focus on in building my resilience? The physical, right? And there's bleed over to mental and social, right? But here's how we're going to build resilience in you inside the military. We're going to put 50 pounds on your back, and we're going to make you walk for 50 miles, and at about mile 25, when you decide you want to quit, we're just not going to let you do that, right? We're going to yell, we're going to jump up and down, we're going to tell you that you're more capable than you think you are. And I'm a little bit partial to some of that, right? Stress is good when you're building resilience. But it only takes care of one particular area, which made me really good in my job, right? However, in 2000 I should show you this picture and tell you what this is all about here. From what I learned about building resilience, those are my 3 children the day after I graduated drill sergeant school, and I'm basically teaching them how to be resilient. I mean, that's what I'm doing in that picture. But that's what I knew, right? When the tool that you have is a hammer, everything looks like a what? Everything looks like a nail. So in 2000, and I've been on multiple deployments, Bosnia, Cuba, Kuwait. In 2004, I went to Iraq. I had a soldier's experience in Iraq, a combat soldier's experience, and I came back from that experience and I fell into a relationship challenge. My marriage of 13 years was sort of falling apart in front of my eyes. And I can tell you in that moment, as resilient as I had been in so many areas of my life before then, I wasn't my most resilient self during that period of time. And it took me about 6 months or better to sort of recover from that. And I'm resilient, and I did, and this is years before I was introduced to resilience training skills, right? However, had I had those skills, had Rhonda been there 5 years earlier, she might have got more out of me in that moment. I could have got back into the game much, much quicker than basically doing nothing and sitting on my hands and sort of doing the woe is me, life is not good, losing the optimistic focus that I was going to be able to get through those challenges. And that's what resilience training did for me in 2009 when I finally was introduced to that there were scientists and researchers that were saying there are ways to learn to be strong. And it should start when you're this small. But you can do it at any place in your life. You can build that. Because how many of you in our audience tonight believe that life is going to throw you a challenge in the future on some idle Tuesday morning that you're not expecting? So why wouldn't we prepare ourselves? Why wouldn't we learn what skills are out there and what science is saying on how we can be not just having to deal with life's stuff, life's bad stuff, but how to thrive in our own life. So when life's bad stuff comes, we are the strongest, most capable us. So, that leads me into one of the first foundational skills that we learn. And this particular skill is called understanding the event, thought, reaction, connection. We're going to call it ETR for short. Now, it's based in psychological science, specifically that cognitive behavioral science that Joe was talking about. And for me, this was the first revelation, right? Because again, I don't work in mental health, but this is what gave me some control back on how my thoughts drive my reactions and how I can have control over those thoughts to get the most productive outcome in who I am. And that leads to positive emotion. And that leads to me being my best self. So the goal of the skill of ETR is to be aware of how your thoughts drive your reactions to an event. Anything jump out at anybody in that first sentence? Be aware of how your thoughts drive your reactions to an event. What? Say again? I love that. Absolutely. The awareness, right? So if you got your paper and you got your pen and you're in class with me right now, circle the word awareness, because that's what this skill is really all about. And it's giving you an awareness of the science, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that it's your thoughts that drive your reactions to different events in your life. So if your reactions are sadness or anger or happiness or joy or any of those things, remember that it's the thoughts and the way your brain is perceiving a specific event that's causing those reactions. So we use the skill of ETR to determine if your reactions are helping you work towards your goals, act based on your values, improve your performance, or strengthen your relationships. When are we not doing that? Right? When are we not doing that? What do you mean I'm not working towards my goals or I'm not acting based on my values? The fact of the matter is life gets pretty busy, right? So if you've ever had a situation where it didn't go the way you wanted it to, and you reached down and grabbed your foot and put it right into your mouth and had to unstick it from your mouth, there's a place that ETR might be able to help you. If you actually went to take a test, all right, or try and achieve a goal of a better score in an academic environment and didn't do as well as you wanted to, and if you take a look at what thoughts you were having before you went into that academic environment, you might be able to capture what was going on inside my head that led me to be nervous. A good one, Rhonda mentioned getting a job. If you're sitting in that chair at a job interview, and you have a thought or a belief that says, the interviewer's not going to like me, or I'm not qualified for this job, that's going to lead to a reaction of fear and anxiety and nervousness. And then your physical reaction to that is you're not going to do that well. So what thought do I want to use? So we want to make sure that we're using ETR to get the most out of who we are. So let's play with a little bit of an example. You guys help me out. We are, well, not we, you, are on your own, taking a walk in grizzly country. You do not have a weapon. You don't have any way to defend yourself here. And my good friend jumps into your path. Somebody give me an emotional reaction to this particular event. What's an emotion that you have?
Fear.
I hear fear. I hear terror. Anybody else? Say again? Did you say cuteness? Okay, some people might think so, right? So, the way you're perceiving that. But I've got fear and terror. I'm going to go with that one. Fear, terror. Say again? Panic. Good. Fear, terror, panic. All these emotions, right? So we're going into that fight, flight, freeze sort of scenario. So somebody give me, if you have fear or terror or panic, what's a physical reaction to this particular event? What would you do? Everybody raise your hand. I got run. Yes, ma'am. Scream.
speeds up.
I love that you're going with the physiology. So inside my body, my heart rate's increasing. What else?
Breathe.
Breathe. Some of us just stop and we're going to assess the situation. Any other physical reactions?
Fight.
I'll say fight. You're going to fight. Good. Yes, sir.
Oh, I think somebody already said, well, maybe play dead. This is the fear.
Okay, some people will play dead. Some people in this situation will let loose of anything their body doesn't need right now. Right? So good. So we have a bear, and we have emotional reactions to a bear, and we have physical reactions to a bear. So, you're taking a walk. Mama bear is not around. You know that for a fact. There is no reason why you have to think that your life is in any sort of danger. Somebody tell me what your emotional reaction is to this bear.
Happy.
Your emotional reaction. Give me an emotion. Here, thank you, Rhonda. So I got love. I also heard a couple of you say, awe. Right? I love how you say that. Now, is awe, A-W-W-W-W-W with an exclamation point, is that an emotional reaction or a physical reaction? If A-W-E, awe, is an emotion. A-W-W-W-W is what your body does when you have A-W-E. You with me on that? Give me some more emotions. What are some more emotions?
I want to cuddle it.
Good. I like that you want to cuddle it. Is cuddling an emotion? What is the emotion that goes with cuddling?
Hug. Love.
Love. Okay, very good. Should we sort of get that gist, right? We're talking about love and joy and the word that Joe doesn't like so much, happiness, right? Love, joy, and happiness. And we've got cuddling as a physical reaction. Any other physical reactions? What are you doing with your cell phone? Right? We're pulling it out. We're taking pictures. I got the iPhone 9 or whatever it is. I'm going to zoom right in and get a portrait picture of this. I'm going to bring the kids up and I'm going to put them next to it. So that's my point. So here we've got an event. We have a bear. We have emotional and physical reactions. Here, I have a bear. And I have emotional and physical reactions. But we have very different reactions to both bears. Why?
One's little, one's big.
Say again?
What do you think about what you thought about Mama Bear, what you think about Little Bear? You're thinking different about each.
Exactly, that's it. We're thinking, your brain processed. It wasn't the event itself, but your brain did something very quick. It dug back in that file cabinet and said, this is a threat. This is not a threat. And those are thoughts, right? So sometimes, if we can come back out of the wilderness for a second, sometimes in our lives, events happen. And even those events seem like they're going straight to those emotional and physical reactions. It's a very quick process. What's really happening is the fastest computer in the world is processing that information. Right? Oops. The fastest computer in the world is processing that information. And it's that thought that's causing your emotional and physical reaction. So let's assume we're on a drive and somebody cuts us off. There's the event. Somebody cuts us off. What are some thoughts we could have?
Swear.
That's the physical reaction. Swearing would be the physical reaction. What's the thought? That's the emotional reaction. What's the thought? Yes, ma'am.
What were they thinking?
What are they thinking? Do they think they own the road? Right? Do they think I'm some sort of punk here? Right? I pay my taxes. I deserve the road just as much as anybody else. There's a whole range of thoughts you have that lead to the emotion of anger, which leads to the physical reaction of whatever it is you do when somebody cuts you off. Right? And in some cases, we've got our family in the car, and it's not healthy for them either. Right? So that's the point of the skill of ETR, the event, thought, reaction, connection. So let me give you a personal example real quick. I do a lot of travel, and I train these skills, but there are some days where I'm not my most resilient self, but I'm aware, right? I look back and I go, I should have made a better decision on which thought I was going to choose. I was on a plane, it was a long flight, we came from Boston, I landed in Texas, and the minute that plane lands, I do a lot of flying, I'm ready to get off the plane. So the minute I hear that, boom, I know the front door's opened up, I'm in seat number 16, I'm getting up and out of my chair, and I'm ready to depart this aircraft. For some reason, everybody else in the aircraft wants to hand out business cards and show pictures of their family. Right? So the event there is that the plane is stopped, the door is open, I'm ready to get off, and people aren't moving. The thoughts that I had in that moment were, people are being lazy, people didn't use the 3 hours that we had to get from Boston to Texas effectively, right? And I want to get off of this plane, which caused anger and frustration. And I'm not a very confrontational person, but when I am upset, I do want you to know, so I sort of did one of these things. What is going on up there? And I'm just doing it under my breath. So I want people to know that I'm disturbed here, right? And somebody turned to me and said, and she was sure, clearly they could see what I wanted them to see. They said, there's a disabled veteran getting off the front of the aircraft. They're waiting in a wheelchair. How do you think I felt in that moment? If I could have crawled out that little window that was in the side of the plane, that's exactly what I would have done, right? Take a look at this video, and I want you to remember the event, thought, reaction, connection. Remember that the point is we want to get to the best reactions that we can. Take a look at this video and see if we can sort of debrief it together. Right, there you go. Oop, almost. Up. Yeah, that's good.
Again, this is the USS Montana requesting that you immediately divert your course 15 degrees to the north to avoid a collision. Over.
Please divert your course 15 degrees to the south to avoid collision.
This is Captain Hancock. You will divert your course. Over.
Negative, Captain. I'm not moving anything. Change your course. Over.
So, this is the USS Montana, the second largest vessel in the North Atlantic Fleet. You will change course 15 degrees north, where I will report to plans to ensure the safety of this ship. Over.
This is a lighthouse, mate. It's your call. Hello? Hello?
Okay, so help me out. You do the teaching. What was the event? Somebody raise your hand and tell me, what was the event there? The call, right? So somebody was calling and they were saying, I'm not moving, right? Let's talk about the captain. We're looking at the captain here. What were some of the thoughts that we think the captain might have had?
Defiance.
I'm sorry?
Defiance.
I'm sorry. My hearing is so bad. It's not your fault. I've got, the Army took my hearing on.
Defiance.
Oh, defiance. So his thought was, you don't tell me what to do.
Right.
Right? Good. Anything else?
Superiority.
Okay, so he was going, I am better than you, I am bigger, I am stronger, I am the captain of a battleship, right? So those thoughts that he had were leading to the emotional reaction when he wasn't getting what he wanted of what? Anger and frustration. And physically, could you see what he was doing? Every time that happened, he got a little bit bigger and a little bit closer. If he could have reached through that microphone, right, and dealt with it, he would have. Right? Was that productive for him? It wasn't, right? In the end, here's what he forgot, and this is part of the skill of ETR. Once we understand and aware of event, thought, reaction, connection, now we can ask ourselves, when our reactions aren't so productive, we can ask ourselves, what's most important here? I'm feeling the signs and symptoms of gripping my fists. I'm feeling the signs and symptoms of the tears coming down. I'm feeling the heart rate go up. So by feeling all that, if I can go, hang on, what's most important here? I might be able to back up and choose a thought that's going to lead to the most productive outcome. So what should have been most important for that captain was what he said but didn't do. The safety of the ship. Right?
Yep.
Does that make sense? Good. So asking yourself what's most important is the critical question in the skill of ETR. Once we can do that, once we've been able to take control back of our thoughts that lead to our reactions, then we can ask ourselves, do I need to find a new plan? If you find a reaction to interfere with your performance, values, goals, relationships, do I need to change the plan right away? Do I need to unstick the foot from my mouth right here in the moment? Or is there something I can do better tomorrow? Is there a different way that I can try this going forward? Because the goal here is to get the most productive outcome that you can get. Right? And that's what builds your resilience. If I can find myself in situations where I'm able to have self-regulation and control of my thoughts, I'm going to get the most productive outcomes. And the more good productive outcomes I have, the more positive emotion I have. You with me on that? So when to use the skill? Understand why you reacted a certain way. You walk away from a situation that didn't go so well, this might be a place that you can say, I need to check the thoughts that I was having that caused me to react a certain way. When your reaction was not helpful, when you find yourself in an engagement with another person that you care about, but that argument is escalating and escalating and escalating, you might want to say to yourself, what's most important here? That I continue to force feed my opinion down someone's throat? Or that I identify that the relationship might be what's most important to me? Is it most important that when I'm engaged in an interview, what's most important might be that I stand my ground, stand my values. If I'm not prepared for the job, that's okay. But I'm going to give this my best shot. And the more you do it, because it's a skill, we're training our brain, that muscle memory, to do it in the moment, to capture those reactions, those emotional and physical reactions. When I'm feeling like I said, when I'm feeling the fist tighten or the teeth gritting, right? I can slow that process down and regulate and go, I'm heading for an unproductive reaction here. What thought would help me in this moment to find the most productive reaction? You can see it everywhere. Go to Walmart. Go to the airport and look at how, if somebody feels cheated, I feel cheated, or I think I've been cheated at Walmart, and how they react to the customer service agent. Is that going to get them to get their refund any quicker? It's not, right? So slow the process down. If you can do it, it might look something like this.
Welcome aboard.
Now you will know when to stop. The all-new Nissan Altima with easy-fill tire conversion. It's our most innovative Altima ever. Nissan, innovation that excites.
So, we all sometimes need our own internal horn, so we can find the most productive reaction in the events of our life, in our life. I want to give it a try. You should have gotten a handout, and I would like you to give this a shot. So, first of all, right there in step 1 is telling us to select events in our life that you felt you didn't handle as effectively as you could have, and remember to be specific and objective. Now, let me talk about that for a second. When we teach these skills, especially inside the military or anywhere else, we have to remember that resilient skills aren't just about the lowest of the low points in your life. And they're not just about the highest of the high points, because the majority of your life is lived somewhere in the middle. Would you all agree with that? Right? It's the way we deal with traffic and getting on a plane or off a plane, how we deal with homework or schoolwork or something along those lines. I want you to pick an event in your life that's recent and memorable to you, and the reason why is so that you can identify the details. What was I thinking in that moment, the last time I got into that small argument with my brother or sister or significant other? So pick that event and make sure you pick one singular event. Some of us tend to lump a whole bunch of events into one thing. Well, what's the event you're using? Well, I had a bad day. I had a bad day, right? We all say it. But there were probably several independent events in there that caused you to have a bad day. So I want you to pick one of those events, and I want you to be objective in the way you describe it. So remember the ETR model, event, thought, and reaction. If in the event you say, some rude person cut me off on the way to work this morning, what have you already done for the rest of the ETR model? Self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You've already added there's a rude person, so you've done exactly what ETR is training us not to do. Right? I just want to say somebody cut me off so I can capture what was I thinking before I reacted in the way that I did. Okay? Once you do that, you go ahead and list what the event is in step 1, and then in step 2, I want you to record your immediate thoughts. What was I thinking in that moment? And then list your emotional and physical reactions. And then in step 3, did your emotional or physical reactions interfere with your performance goals, values, right, or relationships? And what is most important, or what should be most important in step 4? Go ahead and take I'm going to literally give you about 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, to fill out that sheet and really work the practical exercise. See if this skill of ETR really helps you out. And I want you to turn to somebody close to you. And if you don't know somebody, or if you're here on your own, I encourage you to be resilient and go introduce yourself to somebody else. Because one other thing we know is that social relationships are extremely important to our resilience, right? So find somebody to work with, introduce yourself, and work through that exercise. Jill and I will have a walk around if you guys have any questions. Rhonda, you just take a seat. Is anybody using the right way? And if not, if you're not going to go ahead and write on your sheet, you can just talk through that whole exercise with the person next to you. That's okay. Oh, is it really? That's a great count trick. I take a great time. How old is this? Good. It's not necessarily this is about awareness, right? It's a goal just to let you know my thought Any questions on this, guy? Comfortable with it? Yes, sir. All right, so we'll give you about 2 more minutes to get through that, and we'll come back. How we doing, okay? So, somebody help me out. Let's sort of share a little bit in the room. I know it's auditorium style versus classroom style, but was there anything helpful about going through that particular exercise, going through ETR and putting it on paper? Was there anything helpful about that? Yes, ma'am.
What was helpful to me is that I identified what I actually physically did. I didn't, I guess, realize that what I had done in the situation is that I had withdrawn and given up.
Okay.
I thought it was something else. I mean, I knew I didn't get to accomplish what I want and say what I want, but I really, when I think about the fact that what I really didn't do was give up.
Okay, so the physical part of ETR for you, for whatever the event was you physically gave up, but putting it on paper gave you an awareness of that, so maybe you're going to be able to do something different next time, or at least learn from what you've already come through. I'm sorry, I'm not using the microphone like I should be. Anybody else? What else was helpful? Yes, ma'am.
This is more helpful to me than anybody can possibly know. 51 days ago, my husband died. 18 days in Mass General in the ICU. My reaction, I can't live without him. I stopped eating. I stopped talking. I hated. I was angry. And now, not just from tonight, but from time, and it hasn't been long, I decided through this whole process that we're going over that I have to change the anger. I have to change the not sitting. I have to change that. And I realized that on my own and with help of people and with your ETR.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm glad that, having an open awareness of how, whether it's life's big A adversities or the little challenges that we're going through every single day, how this can have an effect on our well-being, our resilience. And I'm very appreciative of this story. Thank you. Anybody else? Was there anything particularly challenging about going through the skill of ETR? Yes, ma'am.
We had the event, and I realized the thought I was having about it didn't really relate to that specific event. It brought up other things.
Right.
And so I was reacting to what that event reminded me of, as opposed to what the actual event was. So if I would have had this stuff with women, we're getting upset about something that has nothing to do with this, what it represents. So I can see what this could really help me.
Sure, I appreciate that. So our brain has the ability to think of, I don't know how many thousands of thoughts inside of a minute, right? And so having a skill like this to help us break down what our reactions were can sort of give us some clarity. So I need to focus here on one particular event before I find myself in sort of maybe even a downward spiral of a whole bunch of events going on in my life. Great job. I mean, for an audience, the first time we've been here together, that's really a great job. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
Aside from the situation and my thought and reaction, I also realized how social media just lit this fire. That I responded to somebody typing a response that I'm sorry I did, that I should have slowed down and thought about it.
I love it.
And instead, my immediate gut reaction, if I'd been with that person in person, I know I wouldn't have said that. I might have said it later in a less judgmental way. My oldest granddaughter got married after visiting him 4 times out west. And she went out and she said, I just got married. And I was just like,
right?
Are you crazy?
Right. Oh, okay. Go ahead, sorry.
And everybody else was like, oh, we're so happy for you. I said, oh, my God. I really want you to be happy, but I have to be honest. I'm really concerned about the fact that you don't know this guy. And I want to be the non-judgmental grandmother, that she comes to. And I thought, the timing was awful, and it was because I could just so easily spit that out.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So a couple things, a couple great points that I want to pull out of what you said. Number one, yes, this skill can help us regulate, especially over social media, right? Because before I see the email come in, that's the event in the EPR model. There's the language that I'm seeing. My brain is processing, causing thoughts to happen, which causes the emotional reaction of anxiety or anger or whatever it is. And physically, I am coming right back at you, right? And this is a skill that can help us dial that back. Well, is that going to be productive? If I do this, is it going to lead me down a path where I want to go? Or is the relationship the most important thing? So that's one piece of that. When we get to a skill called active constructive responding, I want you to be my example there, because I think we're going to learn something tonight. All right? Great job. Thank you all so much for going through that with me. Look, you're getting just a snippet of the way we do these trainings inside of the military and with our civilian audiences. Does anybody have any questions of the event, thought, reaction, connection, and what the goal of that skill is? Somebody tell me, what was that initial goal? What was the word that we circled in the goal? Awareness. To be aware that our thoughts drive our what? Our reactions, our emotional and our physical reactions. And the goal there is to ask ourselves, what's most important? What can I do in this moment? Do I want to react to this thought that leads me down this path? Or do I want to slow that down and try and choose a different thought right now? Great job with that. We're going to go into the next skill. If nobody has any other questions. Joe again? Good. The next skill is called cultivating gratitude. Right? We talk a lot about gratitude early on, right? And gratitude, in and of itself, I can tell you as a drill instructor, when Rhonda put those scientists in front of us as tough guys, infantry guys, combat guys, that we're going to learn about gratitude, we were sort of like, whatever, right? We're not into huggy, we're not into mushy sort of stuff. But once they started identifying the science behind cultivating gratitude and the benefits, if you want to be the strongest you, if you want to be the toughest you need some balance in your life. Because our brains are much more tuned to finding the bad things, the problems, the challenges, the danger, the negativity bias, is what we call that in the psychology world, is alive and well. Look, folks, we were running from dinosaurs just 20,000 years ago, right? We were trying to survive. What that's evolved into today is, how do I feed myself? How do I take care of my family? How do I keep a roof over their head? Where's the next job? Right? So that survival is still there. But what that means is we are all adapted to find the challenges. Take a look at the news. What sort of news sells? Negative. Negative. And we're all in it. Think about when somebody brings you a close colleague or friend or a child, when they bring you bad news and you care about that person, how much effort do you put into trying to help them? Right? We all put in a lot of effort. We don't do the same thing when somebody brings us good news, right? So all I want you to identify there is that cultivating gratitude is about giving your life balance and finding the fact that there are good things in your life even when you think there may not be. So the goal of the skill of cultivating gratitude, what's the word cultivate mean, by the way? Say again? To grow, right? To plant and to grow. So we want to cultivate gratitude. And what that helps us do, based in science, is it helps build optimism and positive emotion. We're going to talk about a researcher named Mark Fredrickson, who theorizes that positive emotions are the fuel for resilience. If you want to be able to withstand, recover, and grow from the challenges in your life, you need positive emotion built into what you do, not when the adversity hits, but you've been doing it all along. So we're going to build optimism and positive emotion. Cultivating gratitude helps you cope with daily hassles and stress. So I want to give you a backpack analogy again. If I learn to cultivate gratitude and build positive emotion in my life, I'm filling that backpack full of good things, things that I may not have noticed before. Right? The good cup of coffee I had this morning, the time I got to read a good book, right? Some time I got to spend with a close friend. I may never see those because life sort of goes like this. So when I'm building that backpack and I'm making it full of positive emotion, when life hits me with that big challenge that we all know is coming at some point in our life, I've got the capacity to be my strongest self, to cope and deal with that stress or that challenge. Does that make sense? So I want to carry that positivity with me. It can help improve our social relationships. When we deliberately are looking for what we're grateful for about the people that are in our life, our family members, our colleagues, people we work with, our friends, when we're deliberately looking for those things, the relationship changes and it evolves. We're going to talk about some specific ways where it doesn't even matter if you tell them how grateful you are for them. As long as you're processing what your gratitude is about them, the way you act around them is different. And the relationship changes and grows. So what is gratitude? Robert Emmons is a prominent researcher in gratitude. And he defines it as a sense of wonder, thankfulness, and appreciation for life. So I'm going to bring that negativity bias in right now. Think about people that do not have a sense of wonder or engagement in the things that they do on a regular basis. People that are just sort of going through life without a focus. They're not engaged. They just sort of don't know why they're here. Thankfulness. They don't see the things that they can be grateful for in their own life. They can't see them. And lastly, that appreciation for life. And I don't want to turn this into a very sad story, but we know where that can go. If you don't have an appreciation for life, if you don't have that focus on the things that are good and what you can do in this life, when life hits you with that challenge on that Idle Tuesday, how resilient can you be? So we want to build what Robert Emmons is telling us in our life. We want to cultivate gratitude so we can build that sense of wonder, thankfulness, and appreciation. Find the positivity, which is quite often hard to do. For a lot of folks, especially if you're on the lower end of that resilience scale, right? Life's looking pretty dark, right? Coming back from Iraq and falling into a relationship challenge for me, I didn't see a way forward, honestly. I mean, I was just going to keep going every day because I had a couple of values to stand on. The Army taught me I never quit. That's about what I had at that point. But I couldn't see the optimism. I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I know we've all been in those situations in our life where maybe we couldn't see what was good. We need to cultivate gratitude in our life before those times come. So here's Barb Fredrickson, her broaden and build theory. And here's what she tells us. Gratitude and other positive emotions can undo the effects of negative emotions. It's not that people who have higher measurable levels of well-being and resilience don't have problems. We all have challenges and we all have problems. Right? But it's how they deal with those problems is what's most important. How they deal with those problems is a more effective way. So if you find yourself on this left side in that negativity spiral, I had a bad day and you're sort of spiraling down. Barb Fredrickson tells us if we can find a way to interject positive emotion, something that makes you feel good about the day or some strength that you have, you can undo the effects of that negativity. And I like the visual of this as well. So think about that downward spiral. The more you go down, the more wired tight you get. You're smaller and smaller and tight. And the more people try and help you, what do you think you do? I don't want you to see what's going on. I'm going to push you away. I don't need any help. And you're stretching that rubber band extremely tight. Where it could potentially snap, right? So we want to find ourselves on that upward spiral. Find the positive emotion, cultivate gratitude, look for the good things regularly in your life so that you can more often find yourself at the top of the spiral. I call that the fly like a butterfly, sting like a bee top, right? This is where I need to be my best self. I am the most flexible and the most resilient me because I built that positive emotion into who I am. So here's how to do it. And common sense isn't always common practice, right? We know the negativity bias exists. We know that we're problem solvers. We're always looking for the next challenge and how do we tackle that. What we need to do to cultivate gratitude is to ask ourselves, what are we grateful for? And specifically, we're talking about recent, the last 24 hours, the last 48 hours. Think of things that you're grateful for. They don't have to be big things, right? You hit the lottery. That's a great thing. I would be grateful for that. But it doesn't have to be hitting the lottery, right? Paying off your mortgage. Be grateful for that. But we're looking for those little nuggets. We're looking for the little things over the course of the day. The good cup of coffee. Today was better than yesterday. Right? All those little things. And here's what the science tells us, and this is really important for those of you first learning it. It's not just identifying what that thing is over the last 24, 40 hours. but it's reflecting on it and asking yourself, why did it go well? How did you or others contribute to that good thing? So let me give you an example. My first opportunity to teach in front of my local residents and colleagues and friends here in Lunenburg. So this morning, I brought these exact slides up, and I asked my wife, and I said, Beth, I'm going to put these slides up on the television set. Would you mind spending some time with me so I could run through them? And guess what she said? You bring it on. All right? I'm here to give you feedback and positive feedback in that, right? So here's what that meant to me. So what I was grateful for was the fact that my wife was right here, by the way, she next to me. What I was grateful for was the fact that she was willing to spend some time with me to make sure that I felt comfortable doing what I was doing tonight. And what that means to me is that I know she cares. I know I've got support. I know she loves me, right? And I contribute to that because I love her. Now that all sounds a little bit mushy, but it's actually very, very valid, right? So her spending time with me preparing for an event is important to me. I might have missed that. I might have made it a chore for her, or I might have just said, hey, it's kind of your job, right? You're my wife, just make sure that you do this. But I appreciate what she did, so thank you very much. Right? So, that's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to think about the last 24, 48 hours. Some event in your life, some small thing, it could be with somebody or it could be on your own. And ask yourself, what are you grateful for? And the most important part of that is to reflect on it. Ask yourself, why did it go well? What was special about it? Why was it important to you? And sort of write that down. I think it's on the third sheet that you had in your participant guide. Write those things down. And then, this is the best part of this. So give it a shot, be resilient. Turn to a partner and share what you're grateful for. Turn to a partner, share what you're grateful for, and tell them what your reflection on. Partner, that's your job. Make sure they reflect. We'll give you just a couple minutes to do that.
Absolutely sure.
Let go of the bad stuff and focus on the things you're grateful for, just to strength and develop. All right. Help me out there. What was that experience like? Talk to me about that.
What?
So writing down your gratitude, or thinking on the last 24 hours, and writing it down, and reflecting on it, ask yourself a couple questions. What was that experience like? Was it helpful? Did anybody find that there were things that they might otherwise have missed? Right? They actually didn't think about it or didn't remember that they were grateful about that because they moved on from that. That was all of 12 hours ago. Anybody feel like that? Sure. Right? Because life keeps moving forward. But being able to capture those moments and savor those moments, right, helps build positive emotion. And it changed the pattern on the way we do things. Microphone. Good.
Was there anything challenging about it? No? Feels pretty good? How did it feel to share it? For those who could actually share it with somebody, how did that feel? Good. Pretty good. Look, there are real practical applications to gratitude, and I'm going to give you another war story. It is something that I was told by one of our students in the military. And gratitude isn't about always finding the silver lining. It's not like, when something bad happens, I have to automatically find something that's good. It's not about that at all. It's about practicing gratitude so you have that positivity when life goes wrong. There was a commander in Afghanistan, a combat commander, that had to continually go out on missions. And they had a pretty, we'll just call it a rough week, the week before. And the morale of the unit was pretty low. And he turned to his resilience trainer, somebody who had trained in resilience skills, and said, okay, resilience trainer, how do we change this pattern? How do we change this pattern? So if you can put it into perspective, the unit was in that negativity spiral, right? And they can't be as productive or as focused at their jobs, which is what we needed them to be. And so the master resilience trainer said, sir, with the op tempo we have, which means how quickly these missions are rotating around, I think the only thing we can do is cultivate some gratitude. And what we can do is we can integrate that into our patrol briefings. Before we get up in our vehicles and have to go back outside of the secure zone, let's go around the horn with everybody that's getting in those vehicles and ask them, all right, give it to me. What are you grateful for in the last 24 hours? And what did it mean to you? And there were things that people otherwise would have missed. I got to spend some time with Jim, a good friend of mine. I got to use Skype, so I'm grateful for technology because I got a chance to speak to my wife over the internet from a very far away and pretty dangerous place. They might have missed those moments, and that just sort of reframes. I'm not saying all of a sudden they were stellar performers, but they were definitely better than where they were without cultivating some gratitude. You have to do it every day. So here's what the science tells us. If you feel like it's a chore, if you set gratitude in your cell phone to go off at 2 o'clock every day, and your phone goes off, and you go, I don't have time to do this right now. I've got a project going. You're not doing it right. Right? You're not doing it right. So you want to find what the right fit is for you. Right? And do it. You just don't want to do it on a regular basis. Again, cultivating gratitude, the moment something bad happens in your life, it's not the time to turn around and go, oh, I remember we went to that training and I need to cultivate some gratitude right now to do better. You need to build it into your life regularly coming forward. So maybe it's once a week, maybe it's every couple of days. But there's lots of ways to do it. One way you can do it is write a gratitude letter to something that you are grateful for. Right? And the science behind this tells us that you do not even have to deliver that letter to the person. You don't have to give it to them in their hand. But because you've written it down and flushed it out and really investigated what you're grateful for about the other person, again, the way you react around that person builds the relationship. I highly encourage you to give to them. You can share your gratitude around the dinner table. Right? You can share it with your coworkers before you go on shift. I know that I've heard, after all these years, I've heard so many different ways. Actually, I should just ask this. Does anybody have a gratitude practice that they already do?
Good, okay, good. There's several. Would anybody mind sharing one of those gratitude practices? What's your gratitude practice?
Actually, I do the month of November. Every day, I write what I am grateful for.
Good.
Every single day.
Right, and would you mind sharing how that makes you feel?
What was that?
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel wonderful.
Good.
It makes me feel happy, you know.
Good, thank you. Somebody else will share their gratitude practice. Yes, sir.
I practice gratitude driving to work every morning. So it puts me in a good place, and I say I'm thankful for my family, I'm thankful for my car that starts.
Good.
Just the small things that make you feel I say every day.
Okay, so it sounds like you've had a deliberate practice. You make a point as you're driving to work to think about the things you're grateful for.
Yep.
That's what this is also about, too. It's about being deliberate about it, not just randomly going, oh yeah, I was grateful for that thing, but I'm going to put this into practice in my life. Anybody else going to share gratitude practice?
Yes, and I guess basically I take a little exception. Instead of Sullivan in 2002, I probably should say Bill Wilson in 1935. I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I think that's foundational to my recovery and foundational to the program of recovery. You know, we have no saying is gratitude is the hinge upon which recovery swings.
Gratitude is the hinge upon which recovery swings. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Good. I've seen a whole range. I know the educators have talked about it, and these are with children, kindergarten age, first grade. They teach them about gratitude and to look for good things that happen over the course of our day. And they put a construction paper tree trunk, and they have the kids write the things that they're grateful for. And what's the most important part about it? Is why do you think that that was important? Why did you think that was a good thing? And they write that, and then they take it and they write it on a leaf, and they go and they put it on the tree trunk. And at the end of the year, they've got all these wonderful things to be grateful for. And I can imagine for teachers, it's a good place to go when there might be some challenges going on inside of a classroom. Let's go over the tree and find out what we're grateful for while we talk about the situation that we're currently in. You can make it part of a bedtime ritual. We don't talk a lot about, we're not going to talk about mindfulness here tonight, but what a great practice. When we go to bed at night, what do many of us do? What are we thinking about when we go to bed?
Pray.
Say again? Everything, the things that happened today, the things that happened yesterday, the things I have to do tomorrow. What's the intention of going to bed? Get some rest, right? We don't talk a lot about physical resilience here, but you need to give your body some rest. So taking gratitude and making it a bedtime practice and say, I'm not going to think about all the things I have to do tomorrow because this is the time for sleep. I'm going to think about the things I'm grateful for. Use it as mindfulness practice to relax your brain and get the best possible sleep you can get. Questions on cultivating gratitude? There's another exercise with a lot of that sheet. You can do that on your own. But it's about thinking about over the course of your day somebody that you're grateful for, and that should bring you some awareness to the people in your life that are important to you. Maybe you'll get some time to write that gratitude letter. So I'm going to go into this next skill of responding to good news. This will be our last skill of the night. And responding to good news is very specifically in that social domain. Right? We know through science that building relationships in your life, the more relationships you have and the stronger those relationships are, the more resilient and the tougher you can be when life throws you that Tuesday morning curveball. Right? So this skill builds that relationship. We call it responding to good news. And here's what we know from research. When somebody brings, well, I already mentioned this earlier, when somebody brings you bad news, how many of you are all in? I'm ready to help you. Right? Do we put the same amount of energy when that same person brings us good news? Some of us might, and it's okay. If some of us do, that's great. That sounds like you've got a great practice of building that relationship. But other times we're going, if there's no problem here, good on you, and I'm going to move on to the next thing that I've got to take care of. We don't put that emphasis in building that relationship. And that does a lot of things to that relationship. Right? It doesn't help build the trust that when I do have a problem, you're the person I'm coming to because I know you can hear me, not just when I have bad news, but also when I have good news. So here's what we know from science is there's several ways that do nothing for a relationship. It does not build a relationship, and in fact can actually take away from a relationship. You can start making withdrawals where you meet that prophecy that Joe was talking about, that theory that we can predict divorce by 95% based on one of these ways that are right here in front of us. So here are the strategies that deflate. I'm going to talk about each of them, and I'm going to have my partner Joe come up. We're going to do a little demonstration with you and see if you can pick out which style Joe is using with me. So the first one that does nothing for the relationship, the squash. Somebody that points out problems or provides negative feedback. That's somebody that's living the negativity bias, right? Maybe it makes me feel a little bit better to point out the problems with what's going on with you. The shutdown. They respond with low energy. They don't care that much, or they're distracted. They sort of give it that nice, right? They're not really paying attention. And lastly, the steal. They focus on him or herself and completely ignore the event. Anybody know somebody like that? Good. Joe, if you don't mind coming on up here. This is my good friend Joe and my boss, so let's be nice. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to share some good news with Joe, and she's going to respond to me, and we're going to engage in about a 30 to 45-second conversation, and then we're going to sort of stop the action, and I want you all to tell me which side you think that is. You with me?
Yep.
All right, so here's my good news. Hey, Joe.
Hi, Chris. How you doing?
All right, how you doing?
Good, good.
I got some great news.
Yeah, what's your name?
Christina and I are starting a new business.
Oh, that's really exciting. What is business?
We're going to sell flat caps. I don't know if you saw me, but she's from England, and I love flat caps.
When I was doing this jewelry business for a little bit. I had this website.
I remember that.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love doing it. It was like this great opportunity to sort of do something outside my day-to-day work.
Why? You still do that anymore?
Yeah, I had a little workshop with a little torch.
That's
torch
great.
and that. Oh, it was so fun. Just
Good for you.
new and exciting.
I hope my business turns out like that.
I never felt a great feeling. It's awesome.
Thank you, Jill.
Sure.
All right. Somebody raise your hand. What style was that? The steel, right? So she focused on food. All right. Did you see any reactions? I mean, I guess I was kind of being the nice guy. I wasn't feeling that inside, I can tell you that. Right? But I was sort of being the nice guy and still talking to her about it. And I even attempted to do what? Re-interject my story in there, and Jill just didn't care. Did not care.
No, I cared. I wanted to relate to you.
Right, I get that. I don't know how you're relating to me, but all right, let's give it the next one. All right, here we go. Action, Jill. Hey, Jill.
Hey, how you doing, Chris?
All right, I got some great news.
What's your news?
Christina and I started a new business.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
What's the new business?
Well, we're going online. We're going to sell flat caps. You know, Chrissy's from England, and I like wearing that old style 1920s.
Do you have time? Because I have you on the road a lot, and I'm just a little bit worried about how you're going to integrate that into the work that you do.
Well, I've actually been trying to interject it in between times when I'm on the road, and Chrissy helps a little bit here and there.
Sure, I know you are already spread so thin, and
It's not easy.
Something that
It's not easy. Maybe now's not the right time. Okay. All right, I'll think about that. Thanks, Ray. Woo. What are we talking about here? The squash, right? Now, here's the important thing about the squash, and everybody's laughing, right? We do this with people we care about. There are certain times when somebody brings us news, and I heard something very similar just a little while ago. Grandma, I'm getting married. I don't mean to pick on you. I don't mean to pick on you. However, but you did the right thing, and you went back and changed the way you did that. But it's okay to have concerns, all right? And we're going to talk about when somebody brings you good news, and you do have concerns, but the most important part of that is not in the moment. Let them savor that opportunity, and we can find another time to bring back those concerns, all right? So we can tend to squash when we care about the person, but we're concerned about, how they're going to deal with it. One of the other examples we like to use, my partner, Otis West, my other colleague, he talks about his son came home and told me he just bought a brand new Ford F-350 pickup truck. What's Dad's first thought? How are you going to pay for that, right? It's not going to hit my wallet, right? And that's the first thing he says, as opposed to helping his son save that moment and then come back later and engage in that. So, I guess, Jill, you've only really got one more that we're going to demonstrate here, right? So let's see what this looks like. All right. Hey, Jill.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
All right, I got some great news. Yeah, Christine and I are just starting a new business.
Oh, that's really cool. Wow, congratulations. That's great.
Thank you.
Hey, I would like to run by the slide deck for you for an
Okay.
a couple of minutes to chat about that. I'm excited for you. That's really great.
Sure.
I'd love to really just dive into the slide deck.
Okay, if you think that's important, let's go for it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right. I wasn't feeling it on the inside, I can tell you right now. Right? Anybody know somebody who does this? Right? They just sort of, they dismiss the news and they just sort of move on.
I said that's nice.
I get that. She was being constructive, but not directly and not enough for me to savor that moment, right? Electronics do this to us, right? How many people do you know that stay on their phone and you're engaging in a conversation, but where are they? They're right here, and they're giving you the nod. Nope, I hear you. Nope, that's great. And they're right back here. How does that feel? Right? But it happens. Life gets busy, and sometimes even we fall into that trap. So we're going to give Jill one more shot at it here in a second, but I want to talk about active, constructive responding. This is the one that builds the relationship. This is where we want to be when somebody brings us good news. We want to ask questions and help somebody savor and celebrate that moment. We want to show enthusiastic support and interest. We want to be authentic to who we are. And realize it doesn't take a lot of time. I don't have to, commit 2 days to actually actively, constructively respond with somebody, but to be authentic, ask them more questions, and help them feel validated and that their news is important, right? And remember who they brought that news to. If they're bringing you that good news, you've got a little bit of a responsibility there, right? You have a little responsibility to build that relationship because they chose you, right? So let's give Joe another shot at this and see what active, constructive responding looks like. I'm getting a little tired of this. Okay. Hi, Jill.
Hi, Chris.
I got some great news.
What's your news?
Christine and I are starting a new business.
Oh, that's really exciting. What is the business?
Well, she's from England, and I like those flat caps, so we found a manufacturer, and we're going to start importing to the United States.
That is so exciting. What are the next steps for you?
Well, one of the things I'd like to do is get the U.S. Army to sort of back me on some embroidery on those, and I can sell them inside the military. I think that would be great.
That's great.
I'm really excited about it. Yeah. Makes me feel good.
That's really great. I'm so excited for you.
Nice, Jill.
Keep me posted about how things are going.
Totally will. Thank you very much, Jill. Give Jill a round of applause. Yes, sir. My teacher's asking me a question. What if you really don't feel excited about what you're doing? How can I feel? I love it, Dan. My question to you, Dan, is can you be authentic about caring about the person? If you care about the person, the news doesn't matter. Right? It's not about the news, Dan. It's about the person. It's about the person. So yes, you're absolutely right. There are some things out there that you probably don't care about, right? I've got a good friend of mine who's into, and I'm not picking on any motorcycle people in this room, right? But he's all about riding his Harley. I've never owned a motorcycle. I know that, I can see their passion about it, right? However, when he tells me that he's got a rally coming up and he's going to take that Harley up into New Hampshire and Maine and go on this long trip, I'm all in, right? Who else are you going with? What type of motorcycles, right? What is it about motorcycles that you love so much? I want what you've got, right? I want that passion that you have. That's great, but it's not about the fact that I don't own a motorcycle and don't really care. Any stamp collectors in this room? Not about stamp collecting, right? You can still ask questions about what about that stamp makes you that excited? And I want to know, because I care about that. So it's not about the news, it's about the person. You're trying to help the other person savor the moment, and if you're concerned about the news, think conversation A, can I help them savor in this moment right now? Or conversation B. That also works when we want to share. So if I came to many of my friends from North Central Massachusetts and I said, we're going on a trip to Europe. How many of you, anybody in here been on a trip to Europe before? Okay. When somebody tells us they're going on a vacation to Europe or somewhere, and we have been there, what's the first thing we want to do? Oh my God, I've been there. That's a great place. What are you doing? You're stealing the news, right? So you can actually take conversation A and conversation B there and go, whoop. I need to use ETR here. What thoughts am I having, right? I'm going to dump this out on them. I'm going to back up. I'm going to regulate. I'm going to help them savor in the moment so they can enjoy it. And later on, I can come back. It's okay to be natural and come back to people. But help them in that moment savor that. I should mention here, too, and we don't say it all the time, if the news is dangerous, don't do ACR. That motorcycle friend of mine told me he was going to ride, he was going to see how fast he could get that motorcycle to go up the highway. Yeah, no, you're not doing that, right? So I'm not going to help him save it. Active constructive responding, right, or responding when someone shares good news is like money in the relationship bank. Just like the backpack of positive emotion that I'm building with cultivating gratitude, if you are able to actively constructively respond with people when they share good news with you, you're building money in that bank. And often enough, there are times when we might have to take a little bit of withdrawal out of that bank account. But the point is, you don't want to go overdrawn in the account, right? So when somebody brings you good news, slow that process down, find a way to actively constructively respond so you can build up that bank. And inevitably, you might have a disagreement, but I guarantee you it's going to go just a little bit better than it had the bank been empty.
Ooh, look who's out on a date. Pasadena's favorite power couple. Shing!
And that is the answer to the question, what is wrong with eating at the Cheesecake Factory?
Are we celebrating anything special tonight?
Oh, yes. Our relationship agreement specifies that the second Thursday of every month, or the third Thursday in a month with 5 Thursdays, is date night.
That is so hot.
All right. Without objection, the minutes of the previous date are considered read and agreed to. Any new business?
How was your day?
Superb. This morning I made a palindrome with my alphabets. It's a nice hat, Bob to Haken.
Sounds like you hit the ground running. I have a bit of good news myself. My most recent paper on how cooperative long-term potentiation can map memory sequences and dendritic branches made the cover of Neuromonth.
Oh, speaking of good news, somebody just hit 100 Twitter followers.
That's nice. Anyway, I've been dreaming of this day for a long time.
Me too. Triple digit, I'm not going to lie. Feels pretty good.
Sheldon, I'm the sole author on a paper being published in a distinguished journal that may change the course of my field.
Oh, 101. Hair's getting a bit thin up here.
So are we ready to order?
Give me a minute. I'm going to go wash up.
Well, that's odd. We both washed up when we came in. It's probably a euphemism for urination.
Sheldon, what is wrong with you?
Not much, although I can be faulted for being overly fond of koala bears. I don't know what it is. When I start munching on eucalyptus, I just melt inside.
Okay, Amy just told you some exciting news and you acted like it was no big deal.
Oh, I see why you're confused. No, her news sounded important, but what you're forgetting is it was an achievement in the field of biology. That's all about yucky, squishy things.
Hank, she's upset. You're her boyfriend. You have to at least try to be excited by the things she's excited by.
What if they simply don't excite me?
Well, just smile and think about koalas.
She'd see right through that. We go to the zoo all the time. She knows my koala face. And for future reference, it's this.
Any fans of Big Bang Theory? I don't need to debrief that, right? I don't need to debrief. You see that if that relationship kept going the way it was going, do you think they would have been together for the long haul? Probably not. And I can tell you this particular skill for me personally, and it was exactly one of those situations. My oldest daughter, I've got 4 children, 3 from my first marriage and my stepdaughter from my second marriage. They're 21 to 25 years old. My oldest daughter, who's got a degree in psychology, by the way, years ago, she would call me up in the fall and say, Dad, the Starbucks pumpkin spice lattes are back out. And the first thought I had in my head was, who cares about a pumpkin spice latte? But it was this skill, that one time when I first learned this years back, that made me go, when you going to get your first pumpkin spice latte, kid? And she said, Friday. right? And that really has done something different. The way we have engaged with each other, and I don't want to make it sound euphoric, but Jessica said, okay, who are you, first of all, right? And then second of all, as time went on, I said, look, there might have been times in my life when I haven't been as engaged in your good news as I should have been. And it's important to me. And she calls me. When Jessica gets good news, she calls me right off the bat now. And is that not what a dad wants? Right? So, I want you to give it a try. Two things. How have you responded to good news in the past? We often use the negative responding styles with those we care about most. We talked about that, right? So, at the bottom of your sheet, there's an active constructive responding piece. I want you to think about somebody that has shared good news with you. Really dig around a little bit and see if you did it right. Some of us may have, some of us may not have. But I want you to write that person down and come up with what it was, the good news they gave you, and how you responded, and I want you to share that with a partner. Okay? Questions on that? Think about the people who responded with you and how you responded. Okay. Sorry. Think about people that have shared good news with you and how you responded.
I think a lot of people, and they don't necessarily feel I agree with what you're saying. Yeah, I agree.
Texas about bringing different pictures and stuff like that. Response to just text me. I should have called them. It doesn't have to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Things that they need to consider.
I think maybe more aware of it.
Makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Don't have to be like that.
Oh, yeah. Is it more important to them than you think it is?
Hey, you okay? Go watch out for dinner. You sort of eat it. You need to engage with them. And you hold on why those kinds of movies are great and why these are great. What about an specialty? Why those kinds of movies up here? You don't do it.
Yeah.
And when I screw my children.
Yeah.
Well, laugh.
That's what I asked too.
Because you don't have to do it.
I asked the same thing. I'm like, do you want to do that? That's what I asked.
Is that good news?
That's exactly right.
Inside the comment. So if you tell me something that you did well, I was the honor guy at pre-ranger course. It's like, well,
yeah, but she's been to me as long as her schedule. Part-time.
Okay. How many of us did it well? How many of the last time somebody shared good news, raise your hand high, be proud of it. How many of us did it right? How many of us could work on it just a little bit? Okay, maybe a little bit of both. Maybe, right, some folks who brought us good news, we did it right, some we didn't. That's why it's a skill. That's why it's something that has to be in our awareness. I've got 3 minutes left. I want you to turn to that same partner. I want you to share a piece of good news with them over the last week or so. Partner, your job is to be authentic and ask questions. Make them savor that moment. All right? We're going to take a couple minutes to do that. Then I want you to flip-flop with that good news. So the other person gets to share good news, and you get to actively, constructively respond with them. 3 minutes, and then we'll close out the night. Go for it. Share that good news.
Oh, that's so funny. You talk about it, that show who's around? And my brother is 45 minutes to one, and then it's 25 minutes to the other. So it's really going to all work out good to get that. Yeah, you know what? I'm not driving down 6 hours to drive back 6 hours. You know, on a Friday to do it again. You know, it's that type of thing. But it's not horrible. Not right now.
Has everybody got a chance to share good news? Who hasn't got a chance to share good news yet? You deserve to be welcome. Right. Tell me how it feels. How did that go? Sharing the good news piece. How did that go? You like her house, right? So you learned something new about somebody. What else? How does it feel to share good news with somebody and have them be engaged in your good news? That's a rhetorical question, right? It makes you feel good. And positive emotions are the fuel for what? Positive emotions are the fuel for good health, resilience. Positive emotions are the fuel for resilience, right? And I know, can I make an example? Have you met before? Have you guys met before you did? All right. I thought it was so impressive that you were being resilient and they were actually practicing the skill together for the very first time, and the smiles I saw. What was the experience like for you two? Pretty good, right? You get to meet somebody. You get to engage in somebody. That feels pretty good. So, well done. Life after resilience training for me. Right? It literally turned my world upside down. The amount of skills that Rhonda and the team at Comprehensive Soldier Fitness brought to me as a drill instructor, it actually helped me look back at times in my life when I know I was resilient, but there were other places in my life that I wasn't so resilient. And I learned that I could learn to do it better. And because of that, it made me a better leader, right? As a soldier, it made me a better father. I got remarried in 2012, right? And I get to teach it. And by teaching it, it makes me much more aware of resilience and the power of what we can bring in our communities, to our kids, to our families, to our coworkers, to our organization. So with that, I'm going to leave you guys. It is 9 o'clock on the nose. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you for making the flight. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for sharing the power of this work. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Obviously, my view is that all of us in this room are the early adopters. So thank you for early adopting and taking the risk for being here and creating the culture that you describe, so that we could broaden this culture and invite others into this town, into the region, into the state. So thank you for being the leaders and the champions in this region. There will be an email going out for a survey for those who signed up on Eventbrite. Please complete it. That goes to the research that Jill is doing. Thank you very much. In addition, please follow up with any questions through Facebook or the Eventbrite post, or write to us directly. And in addition, please look forward to ongoing events and projects. If you have ideas, please approach us.